Hey, Brooklyn Squad. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my true crime show. And today we're going to be talking about a case that I have never talked about on this platform. So I really don't know much about it, but of what I've seen, I haven't dug into it. One of my subscribers has been telling me when this case first hit the internet, you need to get into this case, girl. And we're talking about the Ohio case. And then I had another newbie that told me, girl, you need to get into this case. So I was like, well, one person told me that another person tells you, maybe you should get into this case. And I do all crimes. And at the time, I didn't get into it because there was just so much going on. Just so much going on with true crime, right? Why can't we all just get along? Why can't we all just get along? But it doesn't work like that in the real world, right? Hey, Kathy B, what's up, baby? You've been asking me to get into the I hold case, and then somebody else asked me to get into it. Well, it suggests me that I should look into this. I was like, okay, you know what? Why don't I just take a peek into this? So that's what we're gonna do today. I don't know why I'm jumping like that. Jumping like that because it looked kind of scary. But you know what? On Brooklyn Squad, everything is scary because we cover all true crimes. From babies to infants, from trafficking to runaways to bullying to we cover everything from abuse to drugs. We do it all over here, right? And we just don't cover it. We try to help the victims and their family. And I say we because it's just not me. I do have a few people that volunteers on helping as well. If I need something to be looked into, then they'll look into it and stuff like that. And I say volunteer because we don't get paid for anything that we're doing. We don't ask for anything. We don't run down. I'm not even monetized on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? So we do it from the heart. You know what I mean? And when you do stuff from the heart, your blessings come from God. And you know what I mean? So it's all good. So um I want to say thank you to all my new subs. I really, really do. We do have so many. Oh, and I just put out a new video. So please take a look at that video. That's very deep because that has something to do with the Frederick, um, what's that? Missouri. Now we know we're working with Timmy D's case, right? With Barbara Hall. Well, one of the kids on that list that also their parents are having troubles with the system because their kids were unalived. One of those kids is him and Frederick. So please take a look if you get what I'm saying. Missouri. We always got a problem with Texas, Missouri, and Chicago. It's very deep. You know what I mean? It's always a problem. Kathy B, I think you seen that one because I put it up on Patreon first. And it's been on Patreon for a few weeks. So I had just now put it up on the regular YouTube. So you seen that one already, baby. Okay. Shout out to Barbara Hoare. Uh, Shout out to Jason C. Let's give me a minute, y'all. Thank you, Ray of Sunshine. Ari MSP. Shout out to Don't Be Hating. Barbara Russian, Kay Lambert, Nancy Strickland, Julia, and then next week I'll do more because I don't want to keep people have people waiting. Thank you for joining Brooklyn Squad Real Life Drama. I appreciate you so much. All right. Yes. That is cute, Kathy B. Where you get that? Hey. That's cute, baby. Baby, 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 baby. I like that. Yes. I believe in doing shout outs because if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be so uppy and excited. And every day I can't wait to come on here and see you guys. Every day. I'm telling you, I really can't. This makes my day. Unfortunately, it's sad that um we have to come on here and do true crime and missing people and stuff like that. But, we have to get it out there. We have to get it out there. So continue to subscribe to my platform. I do appreciate you. And to continue to hit that like button so these videos can get out and people can know what I do as well. Okay? Support not only me, but thank you for supporting the victims and their families. And trust me when I tell you, they truly appreciate it because they watch these videos. They really do. Okay. Idaho family. All I know about this case is, hey, Arctic Fox. Oh, wait a minute. And shout out to Arctic Fox because you subscribe to my channel, right, Arctic Fox? I think you're subscribed to me. Are you? I was just giving out shout outs. I do that sometimes. I want to do it more often because I think that's important to just show them love and say thank you. And okay, you are subscribed. Okay, you're not a member. No, you're not. I don't. You don't. I don't. I'm not. I'm not monetized. Oops, what did I do? I don't know what I hit just now. Oh, I hit the wrong button. No, I'm not monetized, Artifacts. Remember I told you that? Yeah, I'm not monetized, babe. Volunteering. And I'm volunteering, but well, basically, yeah, I'm volunteering. But no, I'm not monetized. No, not yet, y'all. But if anybody would like to donate anything to my platform and help it grow, my PayPal and what's that again? Cash App is right there. I don't even announce that a lot. Like I just be like, whatever. If you want to, you want to. If you don't, you don't. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. I'm sitting at no way. I'm sitting at the hospital with my mom. She got admitted because her oxygen. Oh no, Artie Fox. How she? Oh man, I hate to hear bad news like that. Is she okay though? She got admitted too, right? They don't play with oxygen. Oh baby, they don't play with oxygen. My oxygen was so bad they had to intubate me a few years ago. Yeah, I'll tell you that story another time, but I'm gonna keep her in prayer. Yes, definitely. Oh, I'm so sorry. Wow. Mm. She got a good son by her side. I tell you, she got a good boy by her side. I don't know. Mine was below 7. I don't know what mine was for them to intubate me, but that shit was scary. Oh, but no more in the morning. They're going to take images of her heart. Okay. Well, I hope everything turns out okay, you know? Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. It's good that y'all live in the same town, I guess, because you're right there with her. Hmm. I'm sorry, Artifacts. I'm definitely gonna keep her in prayer. God, watch over Artifacts' mother, please. Wrap her around your arms and keep her safe. Hmm. I'm so sorry, darling. Okay. um, this Idaho. Oh, that bothered me when you said that about your mother. How is she doing right now at this moment? Is she okay at this moment? It's good. I'm staying here tonight so I don't have to fight for a parking spot in the morning. Okay. All right. Okay. So she's stable basically, right? She's stable. Okay. 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 Is she alert? She's alert like she knows what's going on and stuff. She's aware. I know the people that'll come back and watch this video later. Y'all just got to be patient because um you know, when someone that I like or that I'm fond of tells me something like this, it has an effect, you know? So the video will go on though. We just want to make sure Artifacts is good. Okay. but she's okay. This case had made nation before, and I didn't cover it. Pow pow on me, right? So we're talking about the Idaho case, right? Where all I know is we're gonna watch some things because today we're doing a reaction video. All I know is a crazy ass man went into some student's house, a cottage home off campus, and pow pew them all up. No, not pow pew them. He stabbed them, right? It's been it's been over covered anyway. Yeah, I've never talked about this case though. So I say, you know what? Let me talk about this case because I had a few of my subs ask me to do it. So, and they've been asking me to do it since it first started. And I haven't. I actually was going to cover another case, which I am when this finished. But I'm not going to do a live on it. I'm just going to recover it and upload it. I just found out about that other case today, and that is weird. And the reason I can't go live on that case is because it's graphic and I can't blur it out. I don't think I could go live and blur something out. So I have to upload it and then blur it out. Yeah, that's what I don't understand either. And that's what we're going to talk about too. Okay, so they get stabbed up like it ain't no tomorrow. Two girls slept through the whole thing and didn't get touched. There's so much more to this case, and I'm interested now in knowing, like, what really happened. What really happened? Who is this man? Okay, who is this man? Where he come from? Why them? Why them? And how the hell did these girls sleep and not hear anything? So we're going to see a few of the news footage, a few of this footage, and then we're going to watch a content creator that I usually watch talk about it. And we're going to do a reaction video. And that's what we're doing today. Okay? Okay. Let's get to it. And then I have another video to do after this because I cannot go live and blur the out. And it's very graphic. So that's why I couldn't do that video live. So I have to upload it. But my hubby's sleeping already, y'all. Poor Davy. Black and missing like Jarrell. Aw. I'm gonna have her up here one day, black and missing. Okay.
The evidence used to find, track, and arrest the suspect in the Idaho student murders is released, including details of a surviving roommate in the house encountering a masked figure at the crime scene and new details on the DNA evidence used to establish probable cause. We're live breaking it down. The newly released affidavit here on WFLA Now. Hello there, folks. JB here with you live across all platforms. Hello to our Facebook Live, YouTube Live audience, where you can use hashtag HeyJB to interact with us. We're going to be featuring a lot of your comments over the course of this live stream. We're also going to be featuring hashtag HeyRobert. Joining us live from Moscow, Idaho, Robert Sherman of News Nation. Robert, great to finally have you on stream and great to work with you here side by side as we go through this probable cause affidavit. This was the document that everybody was looking forward to being released today. We get it, of course, pretty early on in the day, Pacific time, of course, where you're joining us from. We're going to go through it page by page, you and I. but you've had the opportunity to really comb through this document. News Nation, one of the first to get this document. So let's just start with you breaking down what are the main key highlights that you're observing with the document there in Moscow.
Getting an LLC for your business doesn't have to look like this. Just Google LLC Taylor Brands. It's totally easy. You pick a state, you fill out your information, you give your business a name, and you're done.
Commercial already?
There's no paperwork, no bureaucracy.
Oh, don't
well,
tell me
I got to tell you,
one of
JB,
those
first and
commercials
foremost,
back to back now.
A day ago, this was all pure speculation about what exactly happened inside of that home. And sometimes, it's pretty easy for minds to run wild. And, once it stays into that speculative mill and people think about what could have happened, sometimes it's easier to digest. When you read these 18 pages and you hear the testimonies of some of these witnesses, I'll admit, this is pretty hard to read at certain points. The first big thing that stands out to us is that we've been hearing since the beginning of this investigation from law enforcement that there were 6 people that were inside of that home. 4 of them were victims who are now deceased, and 2 of them were roommates. And we were led to believe that they slept through the whole thing and woke up to this horrific scene. We've now learned that's no longer the case. One of the biggest developments here, it actually comes on, I believe it's page 4 here, but one of the roommates ended up actually seeing the assailant, seeing this person. I'll read the whole statement for you. It says that the roommate opened her door, and after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered that person's mouth and nose walking towards her. The roommate described the figure as being 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular. The male walked past the roommate as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. The roommate locked herself in a room after seeing the male. The roommate did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. Now,
has anyone seen this news clip? Have you guys seen this news clip? Arthur Fox and it's 3 people in here, but I don't know who's in here. I just know it's Arthur Fox and Kathy B. I don't know the other person backstage. Well, I could go figure. Have y'all seen this news clip? This particular one? No? Okay. I've seen it before. Oh, you have? Okay. I'm going to keep playing. And I don't know the person backstage. Have you seen it? You're not going to comment. You don't want nobody to know who you are. People kill me.
all of a sudden, you have the human emotion that is brought into this of, the pain and the trauma that clearly those roommates have now experienced, seeing all of this. So that was one huge development that we saw here is that one of the roommates actually did make eye contact and did actually see the assailant inside of the home.
Yeah, because there's been so many questions, Robert, about the 2 surviving roommates and why those roommates were able to survive when the other 4 occupants inside of the home were stabbed to death. We want to let you know, you can read, of course, the very latest on this story. You can click on the link in the description on this video. You might see it also in the pinned comment on this video if you're watching on social media. Just go to WFLA.com, the WFLA app, where we have more on this developing story, the evidence released in the Idaho student murders, again, in the probable cause affidavit that we're going to be breaking down page by page with Robert here. But Robert, before we start to go through this page by page and identify some of the areas that are particularly interesting as far as the evidence used to obtain probable cause, what's the latest going on right now as far as in Moscow, Idaho? We know that Bryan Kohberger, the suspect, is making his first court appearance since his extradition yesterday. Of course, over the course of the day, his flights back to Idaho. What's going on right now in Moscow? I believe, is it Brian Entin who's at the courthouse as we speak?
Right. Brian Entin is inside of the courtroom right now, and all of the content that is coming out of the courtroom, there's a delay on it. That's a judge orders, is that nothing can be streamed live coming out of the courtroom. So we're a bit behind on that. The affidavit is the main thing. And then from what we've heard from the county prosecutors is that they have to go through the process of setting dates. The defense has to get involved in this as well. So, a lot of this is logistical. The big thing was the releasing of this affidavit today. But of course, you needed yesterday in order to take place. You needed Brian to actually be back here in the state of Idaho, because that is state law, that this affidavit cannot be released until that extradition process has been completed. And now that Brian Kohberger is back here in Idaho, now this information can come out. We can actually see what the evidence is that prosecutors are using to make that arrest and to have him in court today.
Right, because Brian Kohberger, as a reminder, has indicated through his attorney, at least his legal team, when he was in custody in Pennsylvania, that he is looking forward to being exonerated, and wanted, of course, to and really waived his extradition to speed up the process to get back to Idaho. And now, of course, as we understand it, and we believe that he is likely reading, or at least being given this information for the first time. We're all getting this information really for the first time, and that's likely to include Brian Kohberger. So Robert and I, we're gonna go through this page by page. And for those who have the document too, you might have the PDF on your phone, you might have it on your computer, you might have printed it out. We're gonna go through this page by page. We're gonna skip through some sections that are pretty straightforward. But I want to caution, and Robert hinted this, and I'm glad that he did, because some of the subject matter here, some of the content can be particularly difficult. So we want to just kind of let our audience know that some of the details that we're going to be going through are graphic. Of course, we're talking about the 4 victims here and the discovery of their remains at the crime scene. So look, if that is subject matter, and if some of these details are too graphic and too personal in nature for some of our audience watching, there's nothing wrong with of course, just reading the content as far as in an article form. But we're going to be going through this now, and we'll let our audience know that that viewer discretion is advised. So 18 pages is the document. And Robert, as you and I talked about pre-stream, stop me at any point if you think that there's something that is, particularly interesting. And our audience watching as well, when I look over at this screen, I'm paying attention to your comments. I've got the document right here. I'm looking over at this screen right here as well. So I'll also be paying attention to your hashtag HeyJB and hashtag HeyRobert questions and comments as well out of the Facebook Live and YouTube Live comment section here in the Stream Center. So it starts here. Exhibit A, statement of Brett Payne, duly appointed, qualified, and acting peace officer within the county of Latah, state of Idaho. Brett Payne is employed by the Moscow Police Department in the official capacity. And then it goes on and on about the law enforcement background here. Let's continue on to the second paragraph. On November 13th at approximately 4 o'clock, Moscow Police, Sergeant Baker and I responded to King Road, hereafter the King Road residence, of course, to assist with scene security and the processing of the crime scene. The forensic team was on scene preparing to process the scene, so on and so forth. Officer Smith and I entered the King Road residence through the bottom floor door on the north side of the building. Officer Smith and I then walked upstairs to the second floor. Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Xana's driver's license and other personal belongings found in the room was Xana Kernodle's room, or the Kernodle room. Just before this room was a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway. As I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Kernodle's, laying on the floor. Kernodle was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Also in the room was a male, later identified as Ethan Chapin, hereafter Chapin. Chapin was also deceased with wounds later determined to be caused by, quote-unquote, sharp force injuries. I then followed Smith upstairs to the third floor of the residence. The third floor consisted of 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be that of Kaylee Gonzalez, hereafter Gonzalez. I later learned that there was a dog in the room when Moscow police officers initially responded. The dog belonged to Gonzalez and her boyfriend, Jack. I found out from my interview with Jack on November 13th that he and Gonzalez shared the dog. Officer Smith then pointed out a small bathroom on the east side of the third floor. The bathroom shared a wall with Maddie's room, which was situated on the southeast corner of the third floor. Robert, I'm going to stop here. And I want to ask you specifically, there has been a lot. Brian Enton asked in his interview with the Gonzalez family about the dog. And I know that the dog is definitely a key part of this case. What do we know about the developments with this arrest affidavit and the dog that was located in the home?
Right. So, it does confirm, that the dog was there in that home. home. And, I mean, of course, with a lot of the social media that was out there, a lot of people saw the dog itself, that it was roaming around. Murphy's, I believe, the name of it. And it gets into it a little bit later, but I mean, the dog ended up playing a role in all of this. Is that
Really?
security cameras ended up picking up the dog barking, making noise, and things of that nature. So again, there were a lot of these question marks, beforehand, as how did all this happen so silently? Where was the dog? Where were the other roommates?
I'm about to say, where was the dog? Did he kill the damn dog too? But that is like a little doggy though. It's a little dog. I hope he didn't.
I mean, it definitely seems as though that question has been answered, that the dog was there. The dog was at some point making noise as all of this was unfolding.
Let's continue. And this is when we get in, we find that the officers, of course, discover the remains of Kaylee and Maddie. As I entered the bedroom, I could see two females in the single bed of the room. Both Gonzalez and Mogan were deceased with visible stab wounds. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Mogan's right side. The sheath was later processed and had KA-BAR and USMC and the United States Marine Corps Eagle, Globe, and Anchor insignia stamped on the outside of it. The Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA left on the button snap of the knife sheath. So the button snap, the snap that is used to secure the sheath, is where they found this single source of DNA. We learned, of course, last week, really over the weekend, about the forensic component to this, Robert, and how the DNA, of course, is likely going to be key. We have heard discussions and reports of genetic genealogy being a part of this as well. But this, we're now learning more as to the source of the DNA that was discovered at the crime scene. The knife itself hasn't been discovered, and they have, of course, continued to look for the knife. But the sheath and the DNA that was on it was recovered at the crime scene that day.
Right. And, I mean, the important thing to note about DNA as well is that, I mean, it pretty much through empirical evidence puts somebody in that room, in that building. And logically, looking at this, somebody who wasn't supposed to be there. So, I mean, you look at the way that investigators put together cases. I mean, they have to start with the evidence that they have. They have to start, with the certain piece that they have, and they have to build from there. And you're going to hear from more there that it's like, yes, the car plays a huge role in this. Yes, the eyewitness testimonies play a role in this. Cell phones play a huge role in this. This pretty much ends up being the piece of evidence that leads to the arrest warrant being issued. The tying back there. Now, I mean, to get to that point, yeah, more evidence needed to come into play. But I mean, this was it. I mean, this was the huge piece of the story that really got investigators to the point that they're at right now, where they have somebody in custody.
Let's go to this comment. Sam, we still don't have a motive. #HeyJB. Why didn't Dylan call the police? Look, we're gonna that second question, motive and the call to police. We're gonna come back to all this. I want to continue to review the document, and I'm going to continue to pay attention to our very, very active YouTube Live and Facebook Live comment section. Again, News Nation's Robert Sherman there, joining us from Moscow, Idaho, on the right side of your screen. For those of you just joining us, JB here with you in the Stream Center in Florida, going over all of this as we learn this information. If you're just joining us, this is all new information coming out this afternoon, or for Robert. Robert's been up since early this morning, because, of course, they're in the Pacific time zone there in Idaho. Page 3, Robert, is mostly information that we know. It's going over, based on the interviews that were conducted, the timeline. For the sake of time on this live stream, I don't want to just continuously go through this, unless, is there anything on page 3 that you want to highlight? Anything that you have in your notes?
Page 3, no, not so much. I mean, for the most part, I mean, that's establishing a lot of the information that we knew, the truck videos, the security camera footage, I mean, a lot of the stuff that has been out there for weeks that we've been parceling through. I'm with you there.
So they had camera footage, huh? Security camera footage. So they had some evidence there. Interesting. See, I don't know about this case. I'm just learning. So, learning as I go. Wow. This fool was on camera.
We could probably move past that.
Okay. DM stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. DM stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she stated sounded like Gonzalez's playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms located on the third floor. A short time later, DM said that she heard who she thought was Gonzalez say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." A review of records obtained from a forensic download of Kernodle's phone showed this could have also been Kernodle, as her cell phone indicated she was likely awake and using TikTok, the TikTok app, at approximately 4:12 in the morning. So I have a big circle here around "there's someone here," because that, of course, that's a chilling quote from this arrest affidavit, Robert.
And again, taking things out of the sphere of speculation into reality changes things a little bit, because we had been talking about how these 4 victims were killed in their sleep. And even some of the families have acknowledged that it's like, well, at least they were killed in their sleep and they didn't suffer. Well, now, not necessarily the case. That you had someone saying there's someone here, and especially with TikTok and the phone being used at 4:12 in the morning, that also changes the timeline a little bit from what we had at the beginning of this investigation. They were putting that timeline an hour or two earlier that all this could have unfolded, but now that puts it into the 4:20, 4:30 a.m. range. That moves that needle back just a little bit. But again, it just.
Question. Would you build a website for a major brand with more than 200 million users?
There's some chilling words that are in here to read here.
And it gives us some clarity more commercials, on the timeline. And the timeline, we're going to go. I know that there are questions about the timeline chronologically, how the sequence of events unfolds in the early morning hours of November 13th. But let's continue. I should also state that we're talking here about a couple of initials, talking about DM and BF, and we're talking, of course, about the 2 surviving roommates, Robert.
Right. Yes, exactly. And they're not included their names there. You can find them on Google, who exactly these people are.
Yep.
But those are the 2 roommates.
Yeah. DM stated that she looked out of her bedroom, but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. DM stated that she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming out of Kernodle's room. DM then said that she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." I have this circled as well, because we don't know. We hear a male voice say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you," but we don't know where this line falls into the sequence of events as far as the stabbing deaths that occurred on November 13th. But this is another chilling line, Robert, to say the least.
It is, and it brings the humanity, back into this. It's coming from a male voice. Well, that can only be one of 2 people. That's either the assailant or that's Ethan Chapin.
Yep.
And you hear people talk about that line depending on who it comes from, but it means 2 very different things, and both are both are really hard to digest there. But it takes away, the thoughts we had initially that the deaths happened. I don't want to say mercifully, but it's like this happened in people's sleep, and maybe there wasn't that much suffering. That really deflates that whole perspective. Now, when you hear statements like this, people were very well aware of what was happening inside of that house, the victims anyways.
Now, these next several paragraphs, apologies, we have left up Sam's comment on screen. We'll come back to some more #HJB, #HeRobert questions and comments here in just a moment. But if you're just joining us here in the Stream Center, these next several paragraphs, and I have some colleagues who are going to be joining us as well over the course of this live stream here in the Stream Center, some folks that are just getting into the station now. But as far as the next several paragraphs, if you're just joining us, these are the paragraphs, of course, that are making news headlines at this hour. Robert Sherman, JB Buno. Let's continue to read through this. At approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera located on King Road A residence immediately to the northwest of King Road picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17 a.m. The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Kernodle's bedroom. DM stated she opened her door for the third time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her.
What you said, Kathy B, stabbing are brutal. Yo, whew. And the victims will wake up at some point, right, during this. Just horrible. You're right about that. You're definitely right about that. Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine, girl. Oof. So brutal. That was a good word. You put that very, very well, Kathy B. I was looking at something on my phone just now. Another case. Oh God, this is so many. God damn.
DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked toward the back sliding glass door. DM locked herself in her room after seeing the male. DM did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. There's a lot to break down in this paragraph. This is what you led with here, Robert. Why don't you go? I know you have something to say. Why don't you go first? Because, excuse me, I have some observations here as well.
Right. I mean, again, one, it brings the humanity back into all of this, is that you had these roommates here. This was not what we initially thought, where the two roommates had slept through this whole ordeal and woke up to this horrific scene. At least one of them made eye contact with the assailant that night. At least one of them saw that person standing in their home.
Right.
And you can, I wouldn't even know where to begin to put myself in the position of that person, of, seeing all of that happen, scared, frozen shock phase. I'm purely petrified with fear.
I got a lot of questions.
This is really hard to go through. And I know there was the question, before, and which, we're about to get into this, is that why didn't that roommate call police? We don't know. We don't know at this point. But what I would caution viewers into saying here is that you have no idea what was going through that person's mind. You have no idea where that person's cell phone was. You have no idea if that person was afraid for their life and didn't want to make a sound. You have no idea. And you already see some people who are casting blame at this roommate. Surely there's going to be more out of this investigation. Surely more of this is going to come out in the hearings, in the weeks to follow here. But there's just so much more that we don't know. And just going through the first 4 pages of how much perspectives have changed from the beginning of this investigation until today, surely there's going to be more that's going to be coming out about this subject matter.
Robert, this is so WFLA Now is our venture into interactive journalism. The difference between live streaming and TV, the most fundamental difference, is that we can respond to people in real time. And here in the Stream Center, I have, of course, all of our comment sections right now, and they are lighting up with the same exact question. And this is why when we do this on live stream, we can respond to our audience in real time. And the big question is why you didn't call 911. And you're of course talking about, you don't know what was going on in that person's mind. There is the mention here in a frozen shock phase. But if there's one massive question that is coming out of our comment section right now and is starting to make the rounds on social media, is why was there such a delay? The exact time of the 911 call to police, what exactly was it? I want to review my notes here, but unless you have it in front of you.
Late morning from what I recall.
Closer to the lunch hour than to 4 o'clock in the morning. I believe it was in the 11 a.m. hour or something to that effect. So waiting all of these hours. And this is going to be a question, because if you call 911 immediately and you get police or deputies responding to the crime scene a whole lot faster, there is, of course, an elevated likelihood that you're going to have the person who's responsible for the crimes perhaps get tracked down because, of course, they had maybe just left the residence. So I know that's where people's minds,
or lives saved, or lives saved,
that's
depending
true too.
on what state the victims were in.
Right, because we don't know at this
You don't know
stage
what
if they're
state they was
deceased
in, right?
or if they are
They
just
probably froze.
significant critically injured.
Right.
Jeez, this is wow. Why would he do this though? Why? You just walk into somebody's campus home and just start slicing them up? I don't understand this. I'm really having a hard time with this right now. Getting through my mind. First of all, who the hell is this guy? Why would he just walk into their home? How did he know them? How did he know them? Or was he just walking into... How did he get in their home? Hold on. Hold the fuck up. How did he get into their home? Is the question. How did he get inside?
Which is another great point. And we'll continue to read this here in a second, but this paragraph opens up so many questions. And I want to start here by talking about the fact, the first thing when I saw, shout out to Paige, your producer at News Nation, who tweeted out some details, and I was able to tweet out some of what she was reporting to when the arrest affidavit originally came out and first came out. And if this was 2018, 2019, somebody walking around in a house with a mask on, let me read this again now. A mask that covered the person's mouth and nose. Now, a few years back, that would be extremely alarming. Somebody walking around in a house wearing a mask. But was it a COVID mask? I mean, are we talking about, your basic, are we talking about, if you're picturing this in your mind, we don't know if this is a mask that is designed like the type of mask that you would use to conceal your identity, something that's a little bit more ominous, something that appears to be a little bit more sinister, or if this is your standard everyday run to the pharmacy, get your mask that the billions or trillions of masks that exist out there that we had from the pandemic. So that I find to be particularly interesting. And then, of course, according to DM, the person, the male, walked past DM, not ran in some urgency or panicked because they were spotted by somebody. The way that I'm reading this and the way that I'm envisioning it, and you can tell me this if you agree, the male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. And so it's not only is the word used to describe the actual movement to walk past, and not to panic and run past that person, but also too just the fact that the person walked past DM and didn't stop to assault that person, given the fact that this is the person who is a suspect in the stabbing deaths of 4 people on the 2nd and 3rd floor. So the fact that it was what I'm reading as a walking motion to the door and not a running, sprinting, urgent, frantic get out of the house motion, and also too that they didn't harm that person, DM. Those are 2 things that I find particularly interesting about this paragraph.
Okay, tell that shit. Come on, man, speak on it. Now I'm interested in this damn case.
Right, very much so. One, just like the...
You be quiet over there. Okay, wait a minute now. He better speak on it, because that's exactly what I'm thinking too. First of all, what I'm thinking is, how the hell did he get in? Okay, that's number 1. See, y'all got me into this case now. Oh, I should have listened to you, Kathy B, when it first came. It's been, a year now, though, right? But How the hell did he get in that house? He walks by her and he don't harm her. He gets keep on moving to the next other 4. Interesting. And I know people say, don't blame them because they was there. They could have been killed too, this and that. We don't never victim blame on this platform. So I'm so I don't want people to ever think that, you know what I'm saying? But you told me to work this case a year ago. Yes. You didn't send, I don't think you sent it to me. You was on the phone and you said I should get into this case. And I was working so many cases before. You expect me to remember? Girl, no, I have a hard time remembering. Yeah. Shit, you told me this a few times. It was this case and the other case. What's the other one that you was talking about? Oh no. It wasn't you that told me, Kathy B. It was D. D was telling me to get into this case. You was telling me to get into the other case. Yes, my bad. Girl, yes, you wanted me to get into the what's the other case you was talking about? I know. I'm gonna tell her ass she better come on over here. She's still working on Jelani, not working, but she's still in the Jelani Day world. We all in the Jelani Day world, but she's deep. But she gave me a few other cases. She just sent me a few other things that I want to look at. Some other boys that wind up unalive. That's similar to Jelani Day. So yeah.
Act of walking, as someone who's an intruder, I mean, you would assume that person would be scurrying away to try and get away. But I mean, the way that there's, this
what's that case
slowness,
that you was talking about
to
before?
it, it just makes it more stone cold. And considering what happened, inside of that house that night,
The lady and
the geography of the house, I have to tell you, the layout of the house. I mean, unless you really do your digging into the house, it's not your typical home, I mean, it's not, it's like first floor, second floor, third floor. I mean, the second floor is kind of like the main area, and that's where the sliding glass door is. The first floor, the front door area, like there's some living spaces down there, but mainly everything happens in the second floor. So when they say walk past, that's hard to, that is a little harder to understand in that line if the one roommate is halfway up the stairs and sees all this, and the person goes out the sliding doors, out the back way, or what exactly that means. It's that's a bit more complicated to understand. And for those who have really done their digging into the layout of the home, will kind of understand that it's not your typical home layout. So that's a little more complicated.
Yeah. So we'll continue. We'll continue to read through this. I also want to point out too that something that is absent. I'm a very visual person, so I'm always trying to visualize this in my head. And I'm sure, Robert, you're trying to do the same as we're reading this, because this is a very visual thing that's being described here. It's in the middle of the night. One thing that isn't mentioned here is just what kind of lighting that there was, because if I mean, you can. I'll read this again. The male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. DM locked herself in her room after seeing the male. DM did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. So we don't know if it was like close to pitch, dark in there, or do we? I mean, was it well lit or dimly lit? Was there some stray light coming in?
That's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But you're looking at this. That time period of 4 o'clock in the morning. It would stand to reason that would be the case.
We'll get Josh Benson mic'd up here. He's just sitting down in the stream center. Welcome, Josh. Good to have you. We'll get you on stream here in just a moment. Here, I have an extra copy.
Oh, I got one.
Yeah. Reporters prepared. All right. Well, I'll let Josh kind of get settled here. Let's continue reading through this. Robert Sherman of News Nation's on with us, Josh. So,
yep.
We'll continue to read through this. The combination of DM's statements to law enforcement, reviews of forensic downloads of records from BF and DM's phones, and video of a suspect video as described below leads investigators to believe the homicides occurred between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. During the processing of the crime scene, investigators found a latent shoe print. This was located during the second processing of the crime scene by the forensic team by first using a presumptive blood test and then amino black, a protein stain that detects the presence of cellular material. The detected shoe print showed a diamond-shaped pattern similar to the pattern of a Vans type shoe sole just outside the door of DM's bedroom. This is consistent with DM's statement regarding the suspect's path of travel. So all of a sudden coming into the equation here, Robert, is Brian Kohberger, the suspect's shoe collection, because we now have the evidence of a latent shoe print discovered at the scene as well.
Right. And, that adds to the sheath, to like all these small pieces that are coming into play. At that moment, you don't have a full case here, but all of these pieces, are leading to that final destination. That's the goal of this whole process.
Yep. All right, let's continue on here. As part of the investigation, extensive search, commonly referred to as a video canvas, was conducted in the area of the King Road residence. It was used to obtain. Okay, and then here we have in the early morning hours of November 13th in the area of King Road and surrounding neighborhoods in an effort to locate the suspect or the suspect's vehicles traveling to or leaving from the Kings Road residence. This video canvas resulted in the collection of numerous surveillance videos in the area from both residential and business addresses. I've reviewed numerous videos that were collected and have had conversations with the other MPD, ISP, and FBI that are similarly reviewing footage that was obtained. A review of the camera footage indicated that a white sedan, hereafter suspect vehicle 1, was observed traveling westbound in the 700 block of Indian Hills Drive in Moscow, approximately 3:26 a.m. and westbound on Steiner Avenue at Idaho State Highway 95 in Moscow at approximately 3:28 a.m. On this video, it appeared that suspect vehicle 1 was not displaying a front license plate. So this is the first time that we get word of the vehicle. Of course, what we now know as the white Hyundai Elantra. And what's interesting about this too is that when the bolo was initially put out, Robert, we're talking about them saying that somebody, the occupant or occupants of this vehicle might have connection, might have information connected to this case. But now, based on my reading of this, this looks like they had a pretty good inkling that this was connected to the crime that occurred inside the home on November 13th.
Right. And investigators did a pretty good job of playing things close to the vest, as you said.
So this man did all this. Just him. Wasn't a setup. No one opened up the door and let him in. He somehow magically got in and chose who he was going to unalive. Oh, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. How did he even get caught? He looked cuckoo. He looked like he ain't over there. Look at him. Look at his eyes. Look at him. Look at his eyes right there. Look, that Kathy B. Kathy B, look at his eyes. He looked crazy.
JB, using verbiage that made it seem so. Say, we'd like to meet the people who are in that car
Motherfucker
because
look
they may have
crazy.
seen something. I mean, now when you read through this, it seems that they had a pretty clear idea that this car was not only in the area, but pretty intimately connected with what happened. And I mean, the next few pages of this affidavit, I mean, almost half of this affidavit revolves around the path of that car and where that car has been. Going to Pullman, Washington, which, I mean, for those who are not familiar with this area, Pullman, Washington is where Washington State is. It's about 15 minutes down the road. There's one main road that connects Moscow and Pullman. You see this car going back and forth. A lot of cars go back and forth between those two towns here. But the path that this car was taking.
Create task lists for any workflow, like onboarding.
The cell phone pings in the weeks leading up to all of this and where that car had been. This ended up being that pretty key piece of information that led investigators to where almost all the way home. I mean, the last piece of DNA is what really led to the arrest warrant being issued. But I mean, this was huge. This was a huge piece of this whole equation.
Yeah, and Pullman, Washington, of course, Washington State University, where we're talking about the suspect in this case, Bryan Kohberger. Let's welcome in Josh Benson there in the bottom right-hand portion of your screen. Josh, I think that your camera's a touch zoomed in here.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see if we can straighten that out. And then
I don't need to make that nose any bigger.
And then we'll introduce you to our audience and just let's touch on your observations here as we continue to break down this document.
Yes, and Robert, good to see you. Thanks for being on today. Thanks for having me on, JB. This thing is packed full of stuff that I don't think anybody thought would be this detailed. Maybe they did, but I sure didn't plan on this. One of the things, the last thing I left off on Twitter, on my Twitter account, was one of the more shocking things, and it's chilling, is that the cell phone records, they have a very detailed overview of the cell phone records. And since June 22nd, Bryan Kohberger had been in near the murder house at least 12 times prior to the murders happening. Robert, you touched on that. How chilling is that? That just shows that he has been in and around for months and months and months. That's almost stalking behavior, if you ask me. And they were typically, the visits were in late evening or early morning hours. So you asked me what surprises me. That jumps off the page right away.
If anybody has a page number for that, I'll read that exact paragraph.
And I just printed this out. I've been seeing these bits and pieces, so I haven't had the chance to read through the whole thing.
Hold on, let's rewind that.
Now, when you read through this, it seems that they had a pretty clear idea that this car was not only in the area, but pretty intimately connected with what happened. And I mean, the next few pages of this affidavit, I mean, almost half of this affidavit revolves around the path of that car and where that car has been. Going to Pullman, Washington, which, I mean, for those who are not familiar with this area, Pullman, Washington is where Washington State is. It's about 15 minutes down the road. There's one main road that connects Moscow and Pullman. You see this car going back and forth. A lot of cars go back and forth between those two towns here. But the path that this car was taking, the cell phone pings in the.
Oh no. Sorry.
Piece of DNA is what really led to the arrest warrant being issued. But I mean, this was huge. This was a huge piece of this whole equation.
Yeah, and Pullman, Washington, of course, Washington State University, where we're talking about.
Oh, okay, Kathy B. That's fine, honey.
Case, Bryan Kohberger. Let's welcome in Josh Benson there in the bottom right-hand portion of your screen. Josh, I think that your camera's a touch zoomed in here.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see if we can straighten that out. And then
I don't need to make that
I'm
nose
just
any
glad
bigger.
that you joined. Stop by.
And then we'll introduce you to our audience and just let's touch on your observations here as we continue to break down this document.
Yes, and Robert, good to see you. Thanks for being on today. Thanks for having me on, JB. This thing is packed full of stuff that I don't think anybody thought would be this detailed. Maybe they did, but I sure didn't plan on this. One of the things, the last thing I left off on Twitter, on my Twitter account, was one of the more shocking things, and it's chilling, is that the cell phone records, they have a very detailed overview of the cell phone records. And since June 22nd, Brian Koberger had been in the near the murder house at least 12 times prior to the murders happening. Robert, you touched on that. How chilling is that? That just shows that he has been in and around for months and months and months. That's almost stalking behavior.
Wow. 12 times. So he was seeking out that house. So yeah, this is definitely first degree murder because he planned it. He planned it. He was seeking them out. But why? Why them? I mean, shit, why would anybody? You know what I'm saying? Why the fuck people be doing what they do? But they do it. You know what I mean? But is there a connection here? Let me keep listening because I'm so new with this case, y'all. And it's already a year. Lord have mercy.
If you ask me. And they were typically, the visits were in late evening or early morning hours. So you asked me what surprises me. That jumps off the page right away.
If anybody has a page number for that, I'll read that exact paragraph.
And I just printed this out. I've been seeing these bits and pieces, so I haven't had the chance to read through the whole thing, but that really jumped off the page. When you look at all of the details and add up the time.
Page 16.
I'm sorry, Robert, say that again.
That's page 16.
Page
it's about
16.
midway through page 16.
So let's just that. And we're about to take a break to read comments and take questions here in just a moment, because a lot of this, to Robert's point, is now going into tracking the vehicle. And not to say that isn't important, but I want to give an opportunity to our audience to ask some questions like this one. The Mama Guide, can you explain more on what a sheath is? And we'll just quickly explain that a sheath it's usually leather. More times than not, it's leather. It's
protect you from the blade.
It's the covering that goes over a blade so that when you store it or you carry it, that it is going to not, of course, stab you or cause any harm to anybody. It's usually a cushiony material, more times than not leather that covers, and it usually is accompanied with just about any sharp knife that you're going to buy, including whether it's a kitchen knife, a hunting knife, a utility knife, a fixed blade knife. A lot of them come with sheaths that to make sure that you don't harm yourself.
Right.
So let's go through.
I was going to make a point too, by the way, JB. If people want to follow along, I know there's just a lot of snippets on Twitter and on social media of just screenshots of this affidavit. If you want the whole thing, I've actually put it on my Twitter at the top. It's the full affidavit download. If you want to download it, all of the pages. It's at WFLA Josh. If you want to download it and follow along, because we're throwing out page numbers and stuff, so it's hard with just screenshots.
Yeah, so that's also super helpful. Let's go through now. Let's go through now page number 16, and let's go here on December 23rd, 2022. Pursuant to the search warrant, I received historical records for the 8458 phone from AT&T. And I just want to pause here. We talk so often on screen about the partnership between law enforcement and cellular providers, and how this happens so routinely with cases that you hear about and don't hear about, as far as tracking down cellular data and triangulation data and so on and so forth. So I find this paragraph to be particularly interesting. The phone from AT&T from the time that the account was opened in June 2022. After consulting with Cast SA, I was able to determine estimated locations for the 8458 phone from June 2022 to present, the time period authorized by the court. The records for the phone show that the phone was utilizing cellular resources that provide coverage to the area of 1122 King Road on at least 12 occasions prior to November 13th, 2022. All of these occasions, except for one, occurred in the late evening and early morning hours of their respective days.
If you have Prime, you can get a year of Grubhub Plus free.
What does this tell us?
Well, what that tells you, for one thing, is that this wasn't just a fly-by-night situation where a suspect ran into these four individuals. Now, he's still not guilty at this point, but this is what this points to in the event that that happens. This isn't a subject who came into contact the night of something and followed them home and possibly committed a crime. This just shows that this individual, regardless of what happened, had been in that area near the house 12 times prior to when the event happened. So you're asking yourself in the early morning hours and late night, why were you there? Why were you around this house? what was so interesting about this house to continually go back months and months and months and months. That doesn't look good for the suspect as far as I'm concerned. And that was just, like I said, one of the things that jumped off the page for me.
So,
but one thing that is interesting, and I apologize for jumping around in pages here, but you go back to page 15 at the bottom of that.
This is a lot. I didn't realize how much this is. This case has a lot to it, and it is interesting to know why the hell did he do this? How did he get caught? How did they know it was him? Did his trial go on already? Y'all? I don't know. Well, there's nobody in here but me, but
that page, one thing that they talk about is that same cell phone was not reporting to AT&T between the hours of 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. the night that the murders took place.
Right.
And there's a line in here in which they say, that this happens all the time, that assailants think that they're slick by turning their phone off or leaving it somewhere else, as if it's an alibi, but you saw the phone was in that location 12 times in the months leading up to the incident, but it wasn't reporting to AT&T the night of. Sure, I mean, a defense attorney is going to try and use that piece of information.
Sure. I see that.
Client.
Yep.
But, as law enforcement pointed out, that is a fairly old trick in the book.
But, with technology, Robert, I'm not aware of how they can track if your phone is off. I mean, look at iPhones. Can't you essentially still find your iPhone now when you shut it off? I thought that was a feature. Now that's like some crazy feature, but I'm wondering if phone companies have the ability to still ping phones even when they're off, or maybe I'm just thinking something up. I don't know.
And I think they did mention this is like if you put your phone onto airplane mode, then it won't be pinging those towers. And that's clearly what it shows that they're using here, is that they're using the cell phone towers in order to find that. It's not connected to the cell network. They don't necessarily know where it is.
It's essentially like an AirTag that doesn't, it has a source of power, but it's not in an on state necessarily.
Right.
That technology kind of fascinates me though, and just in terms of forensics and how that can be used. And maybe that'll be brought up in the courtroom. Who knows?
Right. I would agree.
But good point. Great point. I mean, that it was off in that time frame, 2:47 to 4:48.
Let's welcome you back into the stream center here. What we're gonna now do is take some questions. We're gonna take questions on. I'm gonna ask Josh to monitor Twitter. Okay. I'm gonna monitor Facebook and YouTube Live. If you use any of the hashtags that are on your screen as of right now, you see them on the yellow stripes all around your screen. Hashtag HeyJB. Hashtag Hey Josh, hashtag Hey Robert. Robert, you can monitor hashtag Hey Robert on Twitter as well if you've got your phone handy there. And what we'll try to do is answer some questions or bring up. Look, there might be some eagle-eyed observers out there. We're talking about the sleuthing community, right? There might be some eagle-eyed observers that spot something in this document. This document is very fresh. I mean, it's just out as of this afternoon, or again this morning if you're joining us from the Pacific time zone. So use any of these hashtags to interact with us, and we'll try to bring up your comments on screen using, of course, WFLA Now. So I've got some coming up. Josh, you see any that are coming in that you...
I'm going to read some of the comments that's on there. I'm finding them very interesting. Let me see. Kimberly Todd from 9449 says, when I was 18 years old, someone broke into my home wearing a ski mask. I absolutely froze. Thankfully, he wasn't expecting to see me either and ran out of the house. Who did I call first? My mom. And then she called the police. No one can predict the reactions to any situation. Sandra Tor says, years ago, I had a stalker. I told a friend that I was going to Hawaii for 6 weeks. When I got home, there was a note saying, "See you in Hawaii." Never saw him in Hawaii, but he did put fear in me. Wow. I decided to move to Hawaii so no more stalking happened. Guess he couldn't afford to come in Hawaii or found someone else. Oh my God. Wow. Destiny says, there were two surviving roommates. Why is nobody talking about the other one? Interesting. Naomi says, as a recent graduate who spent 15 years in an off-campus house of 5 girls, the action of the surviving roommates is non-suspicious. My house wasn't even a party house at all. But with 5 university women in one house, you can expect at least one of us had at least one guest over at a time. I remember one day in particular, I heard, hold on, yeah. Oh shit, she wrote a whole damn journal here. I heard the door slam, things falling over, and other weird noise from upstairs. I was genuinely scared, but I called my boyfriend, who told me that calling the police was a bit of a jump, concerning how many people I live with and of the fact that it was weekend night. I later found out that he was right, and there was a roommate who had a bad night and was upset. This is only one night instance of me being nervous about what was going on outside my bedroom, and when many of them. I've heard roommates sobbing, yelling, cheering, jumping, more than I appreciate. And keep in mind, I also contribute to the echoes of the house of young women. I know I sobbed, yelled, and jumped as well. It comes with the territory of living with socially active, young, vibrant college women. I understand questioning the actions of the roommates, but it's not crazy to think that one was scared but didn't think her entire house was being ravaged by a psychotic stranger. Nor is it insane to imagine her ordering food, being up past 4 a.m. and not leaving her bedroom until close to noon. My heart goes out to her and all the people affected by this. They do not deserve to be blamed, shamed, or bullied in something that destroyed their lives. Well, let's continue, because I don't know about the 4 a.m., the food, or none of that. But I do know,
Want
what
us to
I do
address, or
want to know
Robert, any
is,
questions
how
that you're
the hell
seeing
did
come
he
in
get
just
into
yet
that
that you
damn
want to bring up from
house?
Twitter?
And I'm sorry for those that
I'm trying to
have
load up the Facebook
distribute
comment
to
section.
a break-in in their own house.
There was one very interesting
I'm really
question that
sorry.
just had a.
Here's one from Caden a couple seconds ago. Hey JB, hey Robert, hey Josh. What is the most important evidence to this case?
System. How do you take 20,000 children in the middle of New York City without anybody seeing?
I mean, that same person who came from that same program said, look, I mean, it seems as though there were some pretty sloppy mistakes that were made here, if that were to be the case. One of them with the cell phone, pings, in the weeks preceding up, I mean, another one, with the crime scene itself, or the way that it was left, and things of that nature. So, I mean, it's
the car.
It seems
using the car so often. I mean, that's one of the biggest pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it seems as though that I mean, people are putting such a focus on that, as if there's like this higher education genius level. Doesn't seem to be the case for those who have studied in those programs and are looking at the through that lens.
It's a good point. And we have seen, in past cases, serial killers, with their trademark moves, where they go back and maybe visit a crime scene, or they save a souvenir. So in the mind of a serial killer, just to think outside of this case, they have done some very strange things. Now, we've never, not that we can remember somebody putting a study out there to actually gain intelligence on how a criminal of this magnitude would think.
because give me a minute.
I'm nervous telling you I'll be ready by summer of 2020.
Give me a minute, y'all. What's wrong with this thing?
Getting an LLC for your business doesn't have to look like this. Just Google LLC Taylor Brands. It's totally easy. You pick a state.
So when this is all said and done.
So
let's start out with
to go forward a little bit, right? We know that the monster. It's okay, baby. I'm glad you're here, baby. We know that the monster is locked up, right? I still not. I need to really dig into this case. That's if y'all want me to. If y'all don't, y'all want to move on, then we can move on. So let me know in the comment. Matter of fact, I'm gonna make a poll because I have a few cases that I want. I'm gonna make a poll. So please go to my YouTube page where it says, hold on, y'all. I'm gonna tell y'all right now. Community War later on, and vote. All right. You guys are gonna get to decide what case we should do next. I threw this in there because I was like, somebody asked me, told me about this case. So now this is the parents. So I want to really hear what they got to say. And I don't know which parents. I don't know. I'm new to this case. God forgive me. I'm sorry. But I just don't know which parents. Maybe y'all can enlighten me or help me to know which parents said these. I know Kathy B is busy right now, but she's still here. But maybe Julie, I don't know if you know about this case. Could tell me what parents is this. I don't even know which girls.
Almost a year. I mean, it's hard to believe, right? How are you guys doing? I think people would love to know that.
I think we're doing the best we can. And I think that is to be thankful to all the people that are wondering about us.
Don't forget to hit the like
they really
button,
get us
Julie.
through. Coworkers, friends, they're like family now. And I think it'd be much harder without all the love and support.
Yeah, we got a page where we're able to talk to people all across the world that this has made an impact and change in their life. So that helps. Christy can share and say she's having a rough day or a bad day, or post a photo or an image, and she gets that some positive feedback.
Lots of positive feedback.
And friends of Kaylee that we haven't even met will send us photos of times that they had together. So whenever you get to see new photos of your daughters, I pass those on to the other victims' parents as well, and that's always nice. So
that would mean a lot.
It does.
That would mean a lot.
I love a new photo when they come across. He'll send them to me and say, have you seen this one? And I'll do the same. Have you seen this one? Oh my gosh, no, wow. Oh, I love it.
Yes. New photos.
I hope it never stops. She had a ton of spirit. She was fun. She loved hanging with her older sisters, her sister and brother, his friends.
She's very close with her siblings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the siblings and what the order is?
So Olivia's the oldest, and then Steven, then Kaylee, then Autumn and Aubrey.
Well, let's talk about Maddie and Kaylee, because how old were they when they met? 6th grade? Is that what I heard?
6th grade.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Well, they met early on in that 6th grade year. They
the charter school, they had uniforms.
They
didn't think they were cool at all.
No. And Kaylee came home talking about this Maddie girl, and the rest was history. I mean, it was Kaylee and Maddie, and
but it started with their Maddie's mom coming over here and like interviewing us.
Yeah.
Sat on our couch, talked to us.
Just talked to us.
Yep.
You know, she was very concerned, you know,
Making
very,
sure
very
it was a safe
protective
place.
of, you know, Maddie spending the night places or even coming over for a couple hours during the day, you know.
But it ended with us taking her daughter to another country and
her taking our daughter, you know, to Hawaii. And yeah, you know, very
trust was there after.
Yes. But yeah. And they were just inseparable. Kaylee was either over there or Maddie was at our place. So they had the best of both worlds. They did high school all together, graduated, and
picked the same school.
Yep. They both went down there and
they were best friends.
Went down there.
Yep.
And they wanted to get in the same one together, but
so it sounds like they were best friends. Oh, wow. Julie, please hit the like button, Mama, if you haven't already. Thank you.
I don't know how it worked out, but they ended up getting
going separate ways. And they were, you know, so sad. I'll never forget that day, you know, and they were so sad and, you know, they were happy where they wound up and whatnot, but they weren't together in the same house. And it wound up being the absolute best thing for them, you know, for their friendship.
So they loved U of I. They had a great experience there for those first 3 years. They really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Kayla was pretty much graduated. She just did her finals on Monday, and that was her last class. Or that would have been her last class.
Would have been her last class on Monday.
Yes.
And she was coming back on Tuesday.
What do you want people to know about these girls?
You know, these girls, you know, as I refer to them now on the Gonzalez Facebook page, you know, it was at first when I post, you know, my girls, and it's not even my girls anymore. It's our girls. Here's some new pictures of our girls, or, you know, here's a throwback of our girls. And I mean that, you know, they are everyone's girls. And you could see that in photos of them. I mean, you could see the happiness in them, you know, the love, you know, just the bright light. They were just out to live their lives to the fullest, to be successful in life, you know, to work hard, you know, to eventually be married and have families and have good jobs. And it was just unfortunate what happened, you know, to the two of these. I know it's more than two, but these two very best friends, you know, it's just, it's real. And people, I don't think sometimes understand that this isn't TV. And yes, there's TV shows about it, but it's real.
This is your life.
This is our life.
They're not characters.
No.
It's not entertainment. It's a disaster for us. And these kids didn't do anything wrong. Everybody wants there to be some type of decision that could have been this way or that way. These kids did everything by the book, the way you're supposed to do. They went to bed at night, you know, had a dog. I mean, all the things you'd think that would keep this from happening didn't work in this particular case. So I think that's the message that I want the community to know, that these are everyone's girls. This could happen to anyone. We as a society have to stop it. We can't just out behavior it. We can't figure out a way to just be a little bit better or walk a little straighter line, and then it won't happen to you. You have to succumb to the fact that there's people out there doing evil things, and we have to figure out how to address those people and get them off the streets before they do this to your family or to another set of kids that are just getting educated and going to school and come home at night and go to bed.
Just enjoying their college life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody has seen the food truck video. I mean, it really sums things up. I mean, to me, their relationship, you know, in that little clip and the walking, you know, what did you tell Adam? You know, that whole, I told Adam everything. I mean, it's just, it's heartwarming, but heartbreaking at the same time to watch those videos. I mean, I could watch them and smile, and I could watch them and just cry, you know, just to have them captured.
Are you sick of having issues with your webinars, wasting tons of time on troubleshooting with attendees? If so,
Maddie with that big old jacket, and and Kaylee saying, Maddie,
we can share it.
We could share it. And
wow.
It just so Kaylee and Maddie.
And you hear about kids that
and the
drink
pictures
and drive. They got a professional driver to take them back. They did everything the way you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
They even had chaperone walking with them. They weren't going down dark alleys by themselves.
The really popular pictures of the 4 roommates and Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
I love those pictures.
They were taken that day. They were taken earlier. Kaylee texted them to me about a little after 2 on Saturday, and with Maddie up on her shoulders. And that is the last text message that I have from Kaylee, is that picture of her and Maddie. And I replied to it, my lovies, with heart eyes. And then we had a phone call after that. And that was the last time I talked to Kaylee. But that picture of Maddie on her shoulders is the last text message that I have from Kaylee. And it's around 2:13 on Saturday.
Oh, there's just no way to know what was coming.
No. And I look at that picture and I just think, I would never thought that this would be the last picture, or that phone call that I got, 20 minutes after that picture was going to be the last phone call. You just don't think that. And it's real. It's realer than real. I mean, it really is.
It is. Well, I just love the fact that you guys put together this beautiful Facebook page.
Yes.
And that you share so many.
That's true, because you never know when that is your last phone call, when that's your last moment with that person, when, oh God, you never know when this your last breath at all. You know what I'm saying? Make every moment special, not just because it's Valentine's Day or Christmas or your birthday or New Year's, Thanksgiving. Listen, make every day that day. Make every day that day. Every day that day is supposed to be special, because you never know when it's your last time. I'm sure she never knew, she never imagined that she would be making a funeral for her freaking daughter, man. Never. College? Yes. She imagined she'll be paying for college for her kids. Yes. Maybe having some grandkids down the road. You know what I'm saying? But a funeral? I don't think that was on her plan. Yeah.
So many wonderful memories and pictures that we've never seen before. People who love your daughters, because I'm calling Maddie your daughter because she basically is another one of your kids. But it's just so heartwarming to see the love you're getting from all over the world. Tell me why you were inspired to even start that page, because it does put you in kind of a vulnerable position, right? Sharing such personal things.
Yes.
But it looks like it's really a beautiful thing in the end.
Well, it originally was, I don't even really remember when it got started, but it originally kind of started for tips. Like if you have any tips, you could, come to us with tips or information. And I quickly had a different name. And I said, you know what?
Once we got a suspect.
Yeah, I said, we're going to change this. And we changed it to the Gonzalez family page. And I said, this is going to be, to say good things and to bring light and positivity. This isn't going to be, this isn't TikTok. This isn't YouTube videos. This isn't, speculate. Yeah. Because they're out there and, they're just so yuck, and I wanted to be positive. And so I kind of started running it a little bit more. My sister runs it, Steve runs it, and Olivia runs it. And,
photos started coming in when people realized that that's what we were really looking for, was just a connection to her friends and the people that she grew up with that had, everyone has a cell phone, everyone has a set of videos, and those started flooding in. And
little flip phone pictures and stuff, from elementary school. Like I went to elementary school and I have this,
just as beautiful.
It's amazing. And I've told people on that page before that I wish that I could reply to everybody. I can't, unfortunately. But I read all of it.
I chose Wix for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and freedom of.
I wake up in the morning and that's the first thing I do. I take about 10, 15 minutes of time reading the messages, the comments, and before I go to bed, that's the last thing I do. And I want the people out there to know how important it is to me.
It made a difference in our lives.
I'll share things with him, like, oh my gosh, look what this person said, or look what this, or listen to this, or I'll screenshot.
Something that's really nice, and that's how it is. And even though I'm not going through what she's going through, but she's talking about gratitude. That's what she's talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like appreciation and gratitude. I do the same thing when I read. That's why it's very important to read comments. Very important to read comments as a constant. And she's not even a content creator. She was going through something that is traumatic. But the love that she's getting from you guys is amazing. The love that I get from the comments is amazing. I think that's very important to read the comments. Sometimes you get some hateful stuff. I never got it, but I'm just saying I see other people, content creators, get some hateful stuff out there. But most of the time it's all love, and that's what it's about, But yeah, I'm glad she brought that up, though. It's very important to read the comments.
Shot it
Even if you're not a
and share it to my family, and
that's so sad.
It is. It's overwhelming, and it's very emotional. But it also, when they say they share our grief and they pray for us, we feel that. We really do. I don't know where we would be without all the support from our community and the support from that page. It's therapeutic for me. And I don't know if the people really realize that. I try to get that point across. And I wish
she's talking about probably Facebook or YouTube. Somebody's Facebook or YouTube page. You guys are really supporting it. So keep supporting that family, guys. You see, I always say that too. The family watches our videos. They watch our videos. And they do appreciate it. So whatever Facebook or YouTube that she's talking about out there, y'all doing an amazing job. Keep supporting that family. They need it. She went through a horrific. And not only her, there was other children, other teenagers in that house too. Damn.
To reply to every single comment. I would have to quit my job. Yeah. I literally would.
Wow.
There's over 50,000 people on there.
Yeah.
I think.
And it just, certain pictures just absolutely, people just go insane over, and we try to thank everybody for the gifts that we get, because it just comes in volumes.
Yeah. It's nice to see the world too.
Oh yeah.
I love Idaho. This is my community. Always be first. It's nice to see that my daughter in a way has been thought of and seen, and in a way visited all these different places, Australia, Norway.
By proxy, that she's being thought of there. We had a lady go to Jerusalem and wrote a prayer and took a video of her folding up the prayer with our name on it, sticking it into the Wailing Wall, and took photos and recorded.
Like the day before all of this.
Yeah,
broke free. So
yeah, we were just like, oh my gosh, this lady's in Jerusalem, and she said, and I said, thank you for thinking of us. And she said, I couldn't not. She was over there
you never heard
on vacation or whatever, visiting, and she thought of our family to stick a prayer into the Wailing Wall.
Wait a minute now. You've never heard of this case, Julie? Oh, I'm not the only. Well, I've heard of it, but I never covered the case before. This is the Idaho case. That's that case that went viral all over last year. He went in and he unalived. He stabbed 4 college roommates in their dorm on off dorm campus. Salud. Two of them survived because they saw him, but he didn't take them out. My thing is, how the hell did he get in there? First of all, and I'm gonna keep saying that. How did he get in that damn house? And one of them said that she saw somebody with a mask or something, but she just went back in her room. Why didn't you call 911? How the hell did these 2 girls live? And he lurked that house 12 times, between 12 and 24 times before. So he's been lurking that house. Those are college kids. And this is one of their parents.
So that's why it's easy for us to share.
People love you guys so much. I mean, they love your daughter. They love your family. They know you
this
now,
is not the
so
one
they
you.
just want
The one you sent me. I have to
really.
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier about Murphy. Let's talk about Murphy and how special
Blare it out.
he is, and he still has
I'm gonna
an
do a
Instagram
video
page
on
showing
it.
that people really
Not
love.
alive.
Do you get to
after
see
this.
Murphy? I think people would.
He's
be
a lot
interested.
cooler than us. We're Facebookers. He's
Instagram.
Yeah, he's cooler.
Yes, Murphy is Murphy Gonsalves on Instagram, and Jack runs that page for him. And they do all kinds of things. Jack,
camping.
they go. Jack is very outdoorsy. There's pictures on there with Jack and Murphy paddleboarding. You know, camping. Murphy's Jack's. I would have to say one of his best friends.
Comes over here.
We haven't seen Murphy for a while, but we do see Jack. But he usually does bring Murphy. But last time he was just kind of passing by working, so he didn't have Murphy with him then. But said that Murphy's doing great, and his family loves Murph. And I have an Instagram account now just so I could follow Murphy
because the first dog for their family.
Yes,
we've always had dogs.
Yes,
and
this is
Jack
the
always
Idaho.
had to put up with the dogs from Kaylee.
Yeah.
And then it kind of went full circles. They got a dog together, and then he became a dog person.
He's a dog dad.
Yes, he's a dog dad. Yep.
Yes.
It's probably the perfect
Matter of
medicine
fact,
for him.
some of their last texts together were, Jack, we share a dog.
You need to talk to
You
me.
need to answer my text message. We share a dog, literally, you know.
They had joint custody.
Yes, and Jack would come over because they were a little broken up at the time, you know, and Jack would come over and pick up Murphy and take Murphy to the park and then take him home to
Take turns.
Yeah, it was really cute. I was like, you guys are so funny with Murphy. But
you went with them to go.
Yes, we went to Salmon, Idaho.
When
they bought Murphy. Yeah. Oh. And they were picking out, and they're like, "Which one?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just
what
sitting
was it,
in the car."
7,000 feet, the altitude up there.
Oh, it was crazy when we were going over.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it got really, really high, and there was snow, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!"
Put him in the back car, and they were like, "Something smells really bad."
Oh, he was so stinky. He was so stinky.
Oh, he's such a cute dog. He's your grand dog.
Yes, he's our grand dog.
Yeah. So I also noticed on Facebook you guys share about beautiful Maddie K.
Yes.
Who is 8 months old now?
Yes, Tuesday.
Yes. So tell us about Maddie K.
Today.
Is it today?
Today.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Well, Olivia sends us lots of pictures.
And videos.
Okay.
Nothing super monumental, so just a bunch of little things. But something that was being considered back the last time that we talked about this was if there were going to be cameras in the courtroom. Well, Judge did decide that there would be cameras in the courtroom, but they would be streamed from the court. So when I watched this hearing, I literally watch it on
almost daily. There have been so many submissions to my request inbox to cover this case, and I did wait quite a while to cover it for several reasons. First being, this is just one of the most upsetting cases that I've ever seen. It's truly scared me. And, you know, obviously I've covered a lot of cases and it takes a lot to really freak me out, but this one did. I can't tell you how many nights I've just been lying awake thinking about what these 4 students went through in their final moments of life. And I think probably all of us who have been following this have been kind of rocked by it because it is just so brutal and unimaginable, especially now being a parent. I cannot imagine what these parents are going through, what these friends and people who loved these 4 students are dealing with and, you know, going forward and in the last few months. Sorry, I'm getting kind of...
All right, so let me just say something. My plan was to do the reaction video with her because I watch her a lot. I like her content. I was going to do the reaction video with her, but I wanted to show you guys a little bit of the news clip, right? You know, just to go back a little bit on how it begun and stuff like that, because I'm new to this case as well. Show you guys what the parents are saying. I thought the parents were going to talk about the case, but, you know, and then do the reaction video with her. But we did take a little long with the news clip. We started at 7, so we did a whole hour with them, but that's okay. You know, let's get to it now. And it's good because now Julie's here. So let's get to it.
Choked up because it's so upsetting and truly scares me. And for a while there, when there was not a suspect in custody, I was afraid to even talk about this case because it blew my mind that someone could get away with it. And of course, at the time, for a while there, police did have a suspect in mind, but didn't say anything to the media for a while. And so there's kind of the idea that, is this person really going to get away with it? And that was scary. There were rumors for a while that maybe this person was in Colorado. That really freaked me out. And so I kind of waited to cover this. And that's not the only reason. I also waited because there has been so much misinformation and really harmful rumors going around about several different people who were totally innocent and were accused of being involved. And it's just really dangerous to be spreading misinformation. And it was important to me to get the right information to you guys instead of being, you know, one of the first ones to get the information out there. I wanted to wait and make sure that I really stick to the facts here. And this often happens in cases where there is a lot of interest. Random people start getting on the internet, start making their own theories. I've seen people on TikTok spreading tons of misinformation. I've seen people, before the suspect was actually caught, doing tarot card readings and placing blame on people who didn't deserve it. And I'll talk more about that later. But it's really important, especially in big cases like this, which this one is just beginning. I mean, now that there's a suspect in custody, the trial process is going to take a long time. And it's just really important that people stick to the facts. And again, I just want to say, if you're following this case online, just be careful about what you share, what you like, what information that you take in, because there is so much just...
Yeah. Well, let's get to what we got to do.
And warmth that she carried in this world. I also read that her loved ones knew to never let her get hungry because she would get hangry. And I thought that was really relatable and funny. And beyond just being a good person, a good friend, a good daughter, she was also incredibly smart. She was a great student. She attended middle school at Coeur d'Alene Charter Academy, where she met her best friend, Kaylee Gonzalez. And these two were incredibly close. When they were younger, they actually wrote a letter to their parents convincing them to go to high school together. They wanted to go to Lake City High School, and they were able to. And really, these two were more than best friends. They were practically inseparable, and it's almost impossible to talk about one without talking about the other. Kaylee's father even says that the two were more like sisters than they were friends. Where one of them went, the other followed, and that included their decision to attend college together. and they ended up at the University of Idaho. Now, Maddie was extremely focused when it came to her future. She took her academics very seriously, and while attending University of Idaho, she majored in marketing, and she made the dean's list every semester. She also got involved in Greek life, which is pretty big on this campus, and she joined Pi Beta Phi, the sorority. And not only was she balancing academics and Greek life, but she also had a boyfriend named Jake and worked part-time at a restaurant called Mad Greek. So she had a lot going on in her life between school and her extracurricular activities and work and all of the friendships that she had, but she still managed to enjoy being a 21-year-old in college. Maddie was still trying to figure out what exactly she wanted to do in her life, what she wanted to do after she graduated. But one thing she wanted was to be able to stay near her best friend, Kaylee Gonzalez. So now let's talk about Kaylee. Kaylee Jade Gonzalez was born on June 8th, 2001 to her parents Steve and Christy and was raised in Rathdrum, Idaho. She was the middle child of 5 siblings and was a bit of a spitfire from the beginning. Her father described her as the memory maker and the planner of the family. They said if they were going to take a weekend trip, Kaylee would make sure it was filled with adventures and stories to tell. She was very authentically herself. She was social. She was very, very goofy and also really loved fashion and worked hard to buy herself the nicer things in life. If she wanted something, she would be the one to work hard and get it rather than rely on someone else. Kaylee was the middle child in her family, and her parents said that she fit in that role really well. She was really tough, but fair. And they said that she was always trying to prove that girls could do anything boys could do. And I loved that. She was known for being a very loyal friend, someone that you definitely want to have in your corner. And like I mentioned, she and Maddie were practically inseparable. Kaylee's father, Steve, said that Maddie quickly became their 6th child. She was always around their house, whether that meant hanging out with Kaylee or playing with Kaylee's younger sisters. And that was good for Maddie too, especially because she was the only child. So she really got that experience of siblings through being around Kaylee's family a lot.
They were just like yin and yang, and it was nice because, you know, Kaylee would come over to the house or over to their house, and then Maddie would come to our house, and then they were opposites. Like her house was empty and nice and quiet and peaceful. She could do her homework, but Maddie wanted to come over here and play with her sisters. And, you know, and I feel like a big sister in our house, and she was always good with the kids. So it really worked out to where it was just a natural fit.
So while she was attending the University of Idaho, Kaylee majored in general studies and had an interest in possibly becoming a teacher, although she wasn't completely sold on that yet. So she was still figuring out her life as well. And, you know, both of them thought that they had their whole lives to figure that out. So Kaylee was also a part of Greek life. She was in a different sorority than Maddie. She was in Alpha Phi. And because of an internship she was working on, Kaylee had lined up an IT job in Texas after graduating. Like Maddie, Kaylee was 21 years old, enjoying her college years, and had a lot of life that she was looking forward to living. Next, let's talk about Xana Kernodle. She was born on July 5th, 2002 to her parents Jeff and Kara. She grew up in Post Falls, Idaho, and had an older sister named Jasmine. From a young age, it was clear that Xana was an athlete. By the time she was in high school, she played volleyball, track, and soccer. And she loved being outdoors. Any type of outdoor activity she was down for, and she was dedicated to everything that she did. Xana was also super passionate about EDM music. She loved to go to concerts and spend time there with her friends and family. People who are close to her say that Xana was incredibly positive, always looking on the bright side. She was very outgoing, and it was important to her to make sure that everyone around her felt included. Her father said that she was never the type of girl to get involved in drama and that she was never materialistic. And people around her say that she was always down for the ride, no matter what that meant at the time. And this just absolutely broke my heart. But when she graduated high school, she decorated her cap and she wrote on it, "For the lives that I will change," which to me is just a great example of the type of person that she was. She wanted to help those around her, and had she been given the chance, I know that she would have gone on to do incredible things. While attending the University of Idaho, Xana majored in marketing and also joined Pi Beta Phi, the same sorority as Maddie Mogan. She and Maddie also worked together at that restaurant, Mad Greek, which only added to their closeness. Even though her life was full with school and work, Xana also made time for her relationship with 20-year-old Ethan Chapin. The two of them really had built a friendship before they started dating, but by summer of 2022, they were fully in a relationship, and she was beginning to spend a lot of her time with Ethan and his family. And both of their families loved them together and loved how similar they were and how happy they made each other. So now let's talk about Ethan, the fourth victim in this case. Ethan Chapin was born on October 28th, 2002, followed by his siblings, Maisie and Hunter. Just a few minutes later, he was a triplet. And I just cannot imagine what his siblings are going through. I mean, the relationship, the bond of multiples.
He was a triplet. Wow. I haven't heard triplets in a while. I've heard twins, you know what I mean? But wow, he was a triplet. You know, all cases really get me. Y'all know that. I'm very interested now into this case. One of my subs, D, told me about this case, and she kept telling me and telling me and telling me. I thought it was I thought it was Kathy B, but it was D.
Is just so intense that I really can't imagine. Just breaks my heart. So the triplets were born in Seattle, but they later moved with their parents, Jim and Stacy, to Conway, Idaho. Like Xana, Ethan was very athletic and loved being outside. So this was just one of the many things.
And let me just say something. I know y'all keep saying, why you keep pausing it? Because it's a reaction video. That's why. For those that's going to watch it later and don't know why I'm keep pausing, you have to do that. YouTube guidelines. But I also want to say, I did not cover this before because, I don't want to cover it. No, it was a lot of cases, and this case was being covered nationally everywhere. The cases that I was covering wasn't being covered. Nobody knew them. Nobody was looking at them. Nobody knew these girls were missing. Nobody knew about these cases. They wasn't touching YouTube. They wasn't really on Facebook barely. They wasn't definitely touching the damn news. I mean, so that's why I didn't cover this case at the time. It's because this case was getting so much attention. And the cases that I was covering wasn't getting attention. I don't cover my platform about cases that go viral. I'm sorry. I just don't. That's not how I work. That's not how I volunteer. Excuse me, it's the same job. I don't get paid for this. That's not how I do things. You know what I mean? They go viral. That's great. That means that they're getting the attention they need to get. I will eventually cover them. You know what I mean? But I'm not like, oh, they're going viral. Let me get so many subscribers over here. Let me get the attention over here because they going viral. So I'm gonna get a lot of likes and stuff. No, I don't give a damn. No, I care about them and what they went through, yes, but I saw that they was getting a lot of attention. So it was no need for me to cover their case at the time. I had cases that I was covering that no one knew about at all. People were like, who is that? Never heard of this. Oh my God, who's that? Who's that? Feel what I'm saying? So now that they're not going viral or anything, I don't care about that. But I'm still gonna. I'm gonna cover the case. You get me? Yeah, I'm gonna cover the case because it still matters. These are still victims. But at the time, they were covered all over the news, all over Facebook, Instagram. So people knew about them. It's not like they didn't know who the hell they were. So I needed to cover. You know what I'm saying? I had cases that y'all ain't even know who the fuck who these girls was, what these girls were missing. So that's how I work on my platform. Okay, just want to let y'all know that.
The two of them had in common. He played soccer, basketball, ran cross country, but was pretty much capable of playing any sport he wanted. He was very well-rounded athletically. And he also really loved to golf, surf, and play pickleball.
You name it, he played it, literally. Yeah. I think We just watched a thing from the university, spike ball champion, volleyball champion. I mean, literally would play and do anything. He played club soccer for years. We traveled, all of our kids are athletic, and we traveled every weekend, and we just
love to play everything.
He did.
All
He
the
loves
sports.
sports. I mean, our love language with him was sports.
And Ethan loved his family. He was very, very close with his parents and his siblings. When one of them did something, the other two followed. So when COVID hit, the triplets were in high school, and the three of them packed their bags and moved to the Priest Lake area, where they all got a job working at a tulip farm. Their parents also moved with them so that they could all stay close, and Ethan loved this job. He loved being surrounded by nature. He was known as an incredible worker. He always had a smile on his face, according to the people he worked with. And when it came time to go to college, all three triplets decided to go to the University of Idaho. And I'm glad that they did.
Recordings just got better. Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard. I'm so excited to announce that
Because they got to spend, the precious last years of Ethan's life close by. Ethan loved life, and at any point of the day could be seen with a huge smile on his face. His dimples were one of his most defining features. He majored in sports management and was a member of Sigma Chi. And his loved one said that he loved his time in college. Since starting college, he was kind of living his best life, and he was super into the social aspect and did a good job of kind of tolerating the academic side of it. And once he and Xana started dating, his life only improved. He really, really cared for Xana. The two of them shared so many of the same passions and spent most of the summer of 2022 with his family. Now, talking about these four doesn't even begin to describe who they were. On top of being a group of friends, these four were individuals with their own dreams and aspirations, and every opportunity they had was stolen from them in the early morning hours of November 13th. And one thing that I've really started to see from their parents is the message of moving forward. That doesn't mean forgetting what happened to them, but remembering that they would want each of us to keep moving forward, even if they can't. And now that we've talked about the four of them, I want to start getting into the details of this case and how everything unfolded. So like I said, in the beginning of all this, there were 2 months where there was a lot of holes missing in the story, and that left a lot of room for people to speculate. There were so many people out there coming up with their own theories, putting out incorrect information about the victims, about the house, about potential suspects. It was really sad. Kaylee had actually broken up with a long-term boyfriend before all of this happened, and people started accusing him, making up, all these theories about him, putting out personal information about him, like digging into his private life, being convinced that it was him, that he had some involvement. He was completely cleared by police. There was also a University of Idaho professor who's accused of being involved, and she is actually suing a TikToker out of Texas right now for spreading all this misinformation about her. And that kind of thing gets really dangerous very quickly. And that's why I wanted to, refrain from covering this case and even talking about it on social media, because the misinformation was truly out of control. But recently, as many of you know, a suspect was recently arrested, and a lot more information has come out since then. So now we have a much clearer picture of what really happened on November 13th. And it really all starts the day before, on November 12th, 2022. November 12th was the last home game for the football team at the University of Idaho, and football is a really big deal there. So spirits were really high. Everyone was tailgating. I mean, anyone who's been to a college campus on game day knows the kind of atmosphere. It's much different than a regular day. That day, Kaylee posted on her Instagram an unforgettable photo with her roommates. And from everything that I've seen, it seems like they really did feel lucky for the lives that they were living. They actually lived in an area that students call Fratlantis. It's a neighborhood near Greek Row. And living near this area gave Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee nearly 24/7 access to their closest friends and most of the, social events that were going on campus. So after spending the earlier part of the day tailgating, the roommates and Ethan split up and kind of went their own separate ways. Xana and Ethan went to his fraternity, Sigma Chi, at approximately 9 p.m. It was a Saturday night, so of course the fraternity would be having a party. And because Xana lived so close to the Sigma Chi fraternity, it was an easy walk home, which was very convenient for them. So Xana, Maddie, Kaylee, and the other 2 roommates they had, Bethany, and the other one is being referred to the media right now as DM. I think her name's out there, but I don't want to, be part of putting that out there if she is trying to, keep some privacy. But they lived at 1122 King Road, which is less than a 4-minute walk from the Sigma Chi fraternity. Like I said, they showed up around 9 p.m. and witnesses say they stayed till approximately 1:45 a.m., at which point they made the very short walk back to the King Road residence. Meanwhile, Kaylee and Maddie spent their night at a local bar called the Corner Club, which was only about a 1.5 miles away from their house. So the 2 of them were enjoying themselves at the bar, and they stayed there till about 1:30 a.m. Then just 10 minutes later, there's video of them actually ordering food at a local food truck called the Grub Truck. And this is a very popular stop for students on their way home from a night out, which makes it the perfect place to live stream their business on Twitch. Seeing this footage is, God, it's just heart-wrenching knowing what was going to happen to them. I mean, they looked like they're having a great time. I believe they were getting...
So they were really big into the internet, like streaming and stuff like that. Okay. I wonder if that's how he knew. But why would he go after them? They not rich. I don't know if they rich or, he didn't steal nothing. He just unalived them. Well, I don't get it. I don't get why any people do what the fuck they do these days, y'all. I really don't. I really, really don't. But I did hear something about the food truck now. So this is where they was at the food truck and everything a few hours before they was about to be unalive. Oh, man. Damn.
Carbonara, and it just was a normal night for them. And as heartbreaking as this footage is to see, it does really help for the sake of putting together a timeline of what happened. And if you've kind of followed this case online, you know that this footage kind of fed into some of the online theories that are out there. To briefly recap it, there appears to be a hooded man in the footage that is potentially following the girls. When they grab their food and leave, he can be seen kind of pointing over in their direction and walking off shortly after them. And because of that, so many people speculated that he could have been the one who did it. And even after police cleared him of any involvement, there was still a lot of speculation about this person, which I'm sure whoever that is, all of this has been miserable for them. There's more that I could say on this, but this person is not involved. They have been cleared, and there's really no point in spending any more time talking about this. So after they get their food, we're picked up by a private party, likely an Uber or a Lyft, who dropped them off at their house at 1:56 a.m. So by 2 a.m., all 5 roommates plus Ethan were back at the house on 1122 King Road. And something that I recently learned that surprised me is Kaylee had actually already moved out of the house. She had taken summer classes every year, and she was set to graduate early in December. So she'd only gone back to campus that weekend to spend as much time with Maddie as she could before moving to Texas for a job. And before we go any further, I want to take some time to just explain this house because it's a very unique layout, and there has been a lot of misinformation from the beginning about the house and how it was all set up and where all of the murders occurred. So let's really go through this. So the house has 3 floors, and both the first and the second floor have an entry point and an exit point, meaning that someone could enter and exit on either level. The first floor consists of 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and obviously the front door. And even though there are 2 bedrooms on this level, only one of the rooms was occupied, and it belonged to Bethany Funk. Moving upstairs, you reach the second floor, which is pretty much considered the main level of the house. This floor consists of 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living room. It can be accessed from the outside through a glass sliding door that leads to a patio on the back side of the property. And on this level, the rooms were occupied by roommate DM and Xana. And finally, you have the third floor, which consists of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The room on the west side belonged to Kaylee and the other to Maddie. And even though their rooms were super close, the 2 of them actually shared a bed all the time. That's how close they were. They loved to sleep together. So this timeline of how everything played out from 2 to 4 a.m. is pretty confusing, and there's limited information. More has come out, but there are some confusing bits still, but especially in the first 6 weeks of the investigation, it was incredibly unclear. There's only a few things that we knew for certain, is that between 2 2:26 a.m. and 2:44 a.m., Kaylee called her ex-boyfriend Jack 6 times. Between 2:44 and 2:52, Maddie also attempted 3 times to call Jack, and Kaylee tried calling him again once more at 2:52 a.m. So there are 10 calls here to Jack in total. This is another instance, just like the food truck, where people have started making their own theories about what they think this all means. For a while, people were putting it out there that the girls were clearly trying to call Jack while they were being attacked. This is not true. Like I mentioned, some people even tried to say that maybe he was involved and tried to put blame on him, even though her family the whole time was adamant that he was not involved, that he just would never do something like this. So I can imagine it's been an incredibly hard time for him being falsely accused of killing his ex-girlfriend. So next day, November 13th, 2022, a call was made to 911 at 11:58 a.m. The call was placed from inside the King Road residence to report an unconscious person. But when responding officers got there, they obviously saw it was much more than that 4 people had been stabbed and killed inside the home. The bodies of Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin were found in her bedroom together on the 2nd floor, and the bodies of Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez were found lying together in Maddie's bed on the 3rd floor. And it's really, really sad to think about the 2 of them in that moment, what that would have been like for all 4 of them. And their families have talked about how it has been comforting to them in some way to know that they weren't alone in their final moments. I know it meant a lot to Maddie and Kaylee's families that they were together. Kaylee's dog, Murphy, was also found upstairs in her bedroom. And it's been recently shared by investigators that there was a significant amount of blood and cast off in each of the rooms. And Kaylee's dad has been very vocal from the beginning, just wanting people to know that this was an absolutely brutal murder. So obviously, responding officers are shocked when they go there thinking that this is, that there's an unconscious person in the house, and it turns out to be a quadruple homicide. So they end up calling for additional help, including members of the Moscow Police Department as well as the Idaho State Police. And by 4 p.m. that afternoon, crime scene analysts got there and began processing the scene. So the University of Idaho ended up sending out a mass emergency text alert to all students, letting them know that they should shelter in place, but they ended up lifting this request after just a few hours. However, they did tell students to remain vigilant, although they did not believe there was an active threat.
And welcome to this early edition of the Sunday News at 5. I'm Doug Petcash. We begin with breaking news out of North Idaho. Students at the University of Idaho were asked to shelter in place earlier today. The University of Idaho says Moscow police are investigating a homicide on King Road, which, as you can see, is very close to campus. They say police don't have a suspect yet. Around 4 o'clock, the university posted on social media that the Moscow Police Department doesn't believe there is an active threat. The school has lifted the shelter-in-place requests, but asks people to remain vigilant.
And then it wasn't until the following day, November 14th, that the 4 students who were murdered were publicly identified.
Moscow police say 20-year-old Ethan Chapin of Conway, Washington, 21-year-old Madison Mogan of Coeur d'Alene, 20-year-old Xana Kernodle of Avondale, Arizona, and 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves of Rathdrum, Idaho were found dead yesterday around noon local time in Moscow.
And it's hard to even imagine what it would be like to get a call that your child had been murdered in such a horrendous way. What it must have been like for all of their friends and family to find out that the 4 of them had been killed. Family weekend at the university was actually just the week before, and I'm thankful that, they did get to spend time with their children before this happened. When Xana's dad visited her that weekend, he remembers feeling really proud of his daughter and couldn't believe how fast she was growing up. He said that he was impressed with how responsible she was.
I'm like, damn, yo, I'm over here. I'm tired as hell, y'all, but I'm winging it. I'm winging it out with y'all. You know what I mean? Because the other video was so long. I was supposed to do the other video so long, y'all. I should have did this like a part 2. But I like her. She be breaking down her shit, y'all. She be breaking down her shit. But it's just crazy because now he's in prison, right? And he's the only one in prison. He's the only one in prison. They have no other suspects. He hasn't said, I guess, anyone else helped him, any ideas. So that's the one. I know I hear people saying like, how did those girls live? My thing is, how the hell did he get in? And yeah, how did this all? Let me just let her finish, because y'all know I could keep talking and talking and talking and shit. But let me let her finish. I want to hear what she got to say.
And how her relationship with Ethan was going. Ethan's mom vividly remembers how happy she was after getting to visit her 3 kids that weekend as well.
As we pulled out of Moscow, we literally were like, we've done it. We've literally done it as parents. We've created 3 incredible humans that will go on.
So then on November 16th, the Moscow Police Department held its first press conference regarding this case, first of many. And they detailed all the information that was known at the time. They introduced which departments would be part of the task force set up to investigate this horrific crime. And in the press conference, it was revealed that the 4 victims had been stabbed with a knife, although there was no weapon found at the crime scene. We also learned at that time that there was no sign of forced entry and there was no suspect. People were warned to stay vigilant, even though they did say that they believed that this was an isolated event.
The 4 were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time. There was no sign of forced entry into the residence. Investigators are continuing to collect evidence at the scene. Investigators are working to develop a timeline to relevant events. Autopsies are taking place today on all the victims so we can continue to gather evidence and solve the crime. Investigators are working to follow up on all leads and to identify a person of interest. Based on details at the scene, we believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims. We do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there. We cannot say that there's no threat to the community, and as we have stated, please stay vigilant, report any suspicious activity, and be aware of your surroundings at all times.
And the president of the University of Idaho and the provost also spoke that day and answered questions regarding campus safety and security. And obviously this press conference was somewhat informative and important. It definitely left everyone feeling confused, scared. There were so many questions that everyone all around the nation had at this point. The only clear answers we got in those first couple of days was on November 17th when the autopsies were done. And it was confirmed at that point that the cause of death was the result of stabbing and the manner of death was homicide. But there was also a lot of conflicting information because it stated that some of the victims had defensive wounds, but also that they were likely asleep during the attack. So obviously people were wondering how could they possibly have defensive wounds if they were sleeping while this was happening. And I'll get into more of that later, but this is just an example of how some of the information that was put out led to people questioning even more. And when I think back to mid-November and what I was seeing on social media, I remember that most people were just scared, confused, trying to fill those holes themselves. I mean, police were saying that they thought this was an isolated event, but also telling people to stay vigilant. So it was just confusing and very scary for Moscow. People were very confused about how all this played out. How if 2 people were sleeping together and one was murdered violently, how the other wouldn't have woken up. And it was also confusing to people at the time that it seemed as if 2 of those surviving roommates had slept through the whole thing happening. And everyone was wondering, how is that possible? How could 4 people be murdered in a home and no one else wakes up? Well, there has been some more clarification on that. I will get into that later on. The victims' families, the community, and really the whole nation were left hoping that more details would be made public and that something inside the home would point to whoever was responsible for these murders. And in addition to processing the crime scene at the Kings Road residence, which included identifying and collecting any available evidence inside the home, and investigators also extended their search beyond the home, outside. And in the early days of the attack, officers canvassed the whole neighborhood looking for security cameras that would hopefully point them in the right direction of who was in the area that night. Several surveillance cameras were found, taken, and processed, and review of this footage has provided investigators with crucial information that would would eventually lead to an arrest. So when they reviewed all of the security footage, they end up finding a white sedan enters the neighborhood at 3:29 a.m. and passes by the house 3 times before returning at 4:04 a.m. And then at 4:20 a.m., it can be seen leaving the area at a high rate of speed. So this footage was sent to the FBI at that point, and it was further reviewed by a forensic examiner with 35 years of experience who specializes in identifying the unique characteristics of vehicles. And it was this expert who determined that the vehicle matched the description of a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra, although they later extended the model to incorporate vehicles made between 2011 and 2016. So on November 25th, the Moscow Police Department asked local law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for any white Hyundai Elantras in the immediate area, but they ended up keeping all information about this vehicle away from the public for another 12 days. So if you have heard this information about the vehicle, it's because it came out in the probable cause affidavit, which came out pretty recently, and I will be getting more into that later. And obviously, because this information was not released at first, it definitely led into the frenzy that maybe this case would never be solved. But throughout this whole time, the police, the FBI have been holding a lot of information close to the vest for, I'm sure, good reason.
First of all, she got me when she said there was no broken entry, like no forced entry. I keep saying, how the hell did he get into that damn house? Did he climb through a window? Did somebody let him in? Allegedly. I'm just asking. I'm just asking a question. I don't know. Did he climb through a window? No. He couldn't have done that because it said there's no broken entry. Some people leave the key outside. I see movies sometimes when people have like a house. And I know this ain't a movie, but I'm just saying. For those that's going to be watching later. And they be leaving their key like under the rug or inside the, what you call that? You know. Whatever.
Reason. But meanwhile, while they're working on the case, the families of these 4 students and students from the University of Idaho and the Moscow community were really coming together to remember the lives that had been lost. Ethan's funeral was the first to be held, and it took place on November 21st.
So my name is Stacy Chapin. I thought I could do this.
The plant.
Today we're here to honor the life and legacy of our son and brother, Ethan Chapin, one of the most incredible people you'll ever know.
And then on November 30th, the university held a vigil in honor of Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee. And just by looking at these photos from the day, you can see how broken this community was by the loss and still is. But it is also so beautiful to see how everyone came together, regardless of the pain, to be there for these families and for one another. And their parents got up there and spoke with such grace and composure. I cannot imagine being in that situation. I don't think I'd be able to function for a very long time. So it's just incredibly emotional to hear their strength during this horrific time. Ethan's mom spoke beautifully about the importance of family and how proud she was of Ethan and her other children for being a part of the Vandal community. She emphasized the importance of expressing your love to those around you and how necessary it is to keep pushing forward.
But I would like to start by saying my name is Stacy Chapin. I'm Ethan's mom. I'm here tonight with my husband, Jim, Ethan's dad, and his brother, Hunter, and his sister, Maisie, who are also vandals. What I want you to know is that our family is no different than probably all of your families. We sat at the dinner table when time permitted. We played games together. We traveled. We hauled our kids to every sporting event imaginable. We had cribbage tournaments, pickleball competitions, and basketball shooting contests. But the most important thing is that in our family, we always had each other's backs, and we will continue to do so. And for all of the things that I've listed and the times that I haven't mentioned.
Tell me about your new neighbors. They're Black.
There's just something real strange about her, you know?
There she is, slaving away in the kitchen. Next thing you know, we have criminals. We are living next door to a racist.
We are eternally grateful that we spent so much time with him. And I want to remind you that that's the most important message that we have for you and your families, is to make sure that you spend as much time as possible with those people, because time is precious and it's something you can't get back.
Kaylee's father also gave an incredibly emotional speech about the relationship between father and daughter and how that should be considered the eighth wonder of the world. He also talked about Kaylee and Maddie's relationship over the years and how in the end, like I said, they were happy that they were still together, and that brought him and his family a lot of comfort.
Just so I can let everybody know, the main reason I'm up here today is so that everybody can understand
you
what we
cannot
lost.
get back.
I hope to be able to make you laugh, but I'm afraid we're going to have to cry, because we lost 4 beautiful souls. And the 2 that I'm up here to talk about are the ones I knew. And when I started thinking about how I was going to tell these people what their souls were like and the things that they shared with me, I started thinking that this is going to be really tough. But these girls were absolutely beautiful. They've been friends since 6th grade. We both put them in a charter academy. They felt like they were being punished. 6th grade, they just found each other. And every day they did homework together. They came to our house together. They shared everything. They convinced us. They made a proposal to go to high school, to a regular high school. So then they went to high schools together. Then they started looking at colleges. They came here together. They eventually get into the same apartment together. And in the end, they died together in the same room, in the same bed. And it's a shame, and it hurts. But the beauty of the 2 always being together is something that it comforts us. It lets us know that they were with their best friends in the whole world.
Maddie's dad, Ben, spoke so warmly about his only daughter and shared how just incredible she was from the day that she was born. Hearing him talk, you can just feel how proud he was of her, how much he loved her, and how amazed he was by all that she accomplished in her short life.
She was Karen and my only child that we ever had, and so she got, everything she ever did was such a big deal. She was just such a happy, such a great kid, such a perfect little baby, and so just smart and funny and beautiful. She was just nice to everybody. And when I would meet people, ever since she was first born, when I meet people, they say, tell me about yourself, or you're just trying to get to know someone. The first thing I'd say is, well, I have this daughter, and she's here's a picture of her. She's on the dean's list at college, and she works hard, and she has all these great friends in the sorority, and she's, I just would tell them all about Maddie. I wouldn't even, they walk away from it like, I don't know anything about him. We know all about his little girl though, and she always worked hard. She started getting jobs when she was just like barely even a teenager. Her mom had to fire her whole housekeeping staff of the hotel that she managed. And so Maddie and her friends stepped up, and the next day they were all in there cleaning rooms, which is a hard job. From then on, she always had a job. Like not all of that age of kids are all out there working all the time, but she sure was. She'd always work hard and make her own money. And and buy her own cars and pay for her own gas. And
Unfortunately, Xana's parents were unable to attend this vigil, but her memory was definitely felt through the entire event. And only 2 days later, a memorial service was held in Post Falls, where friends and family spoke more about the victims.
Hundreds gathered today in Post Falls for a memorial service for Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan, the University of Idaho students killed in the quadruple homicide in Moscow last month.
The world is a darker place without them, but the light of their love and memories will always guide us all. Maddie has truly been a blessing in our lives. Watching her grow and mature into the amazing woman she become is truly priceless in our hearts.
Xana, you will not be forgotten. You have impacted so many lives and have given people so much love. I hope I can make you proud and try to leave an impact on this world and on people like you did.
If you knew Ethan, he was never angry about anything. He would never get upset. You couldn't upset him ever.
We're just heartbroken. We know it's just going to take time for everybody to heal. If that's possible. I just pray that it is.
But because investigators were keeping so much information under wraps at that point, December was a really tough time for the whole community, but especially these families. We were hearing a lot about the victims, how incredible they were. We were hearing from the families, but we weren't hearing much information about who did this and how they were planning to solve this murder and get justice for these victims. And it was frustrating and, just left so many people wondering. And the information that was public really only made people question everything even more, and there just wasn't a lot of answers for those questions.
It's been about 3 weeks since the horrific stabbing death of 4 college students at the University of Idaho. 3 weeks since we lost Xana, Maddie, Kaylee, and Ethan. 3 weeks, and still the police have no suspect or person of interest. The community has been left in
I was reading and I didn't know I was muted. I forgot. I mute myself because I was eating my crackers. And I wasn't even, be annoyed by the crunch. So that's just trying to be polite for y'all. Well, for whoever was 1 person, 2 people in here in the back. I don't know. Anyway, Ethan, I was just reading that it was his best friend that came in the house and found him. Checked his pulse and dialed 911 or screamed for 911 for somebody to call 911. Wow, man. So his best friend found him. Damn. That's scary.
limbo, left with more confusion and more questions. We are on the hunt for answers for them. Moscow deserves answers. The students of the university deserve answers. These 4 young innocent victims deserve answers, and so do their families.
The Gonzalez family, Kaylee's parents, were very public about their frustration and disdain, really. They were not happy. They made many media appearances and expressed their concern over and over. They did say that they fully supported and believed in those handling the case, but they were deeply upset about the lack of information.
Steve, you have made it very clear to our audience that you are supportive of law enforcement. But recently, I've been watching and talking with you, and you're getting frustrated. What does that frustration come from, sir?
They put certain people between you and the officers that are making things happen. And those people are like lawyers, and they don't want to say anything, and they don't have the guts to come up and be alpha and be like leaders and say, hey, we might say something that's wrong. We're going to take that hit. So the officers, they look me straight in their eyes. The lead detective looked me in his eyes. I have no doubt he's working as hard as he can. but somebody isn't communicating. There's nothing being released. It seems like they're trying to suppress the story.
We just have no information as family, and it's tough day after day after day. I mean, every day you just wake up and think today's the day. We're going to hear something, and you see these, oh, there's a break in the case, and it'll just be something stupid.
The sixth person on the lease that was never there. Stop playing games.
Xana's mom, Kara, had similar frustrations as the Gonzalez family, but she, on the other hand.
So for those that say, because I used to think this too, but since I've been working more and more and more and more cases, that went out my head. But I did hear this the other night when I was in somebody else's, not the other night, it was like a few weeks ago in somebody else's group or whatever. They're trying to build something that the white people get the justice that they need. It's the black people that don't get justice at all. And that's not true. This is an occasion. Okay, it's a white family. This is a white family, right? And they're sitting here right here in your face on the news telling you that they are feeling like they're not getting or the right answers that they should be getting. That they feel like justice is not in their corner right now at that time, because the guy is locked up right now, but at that time. So I don't think it's always a color thing. And I'm not saying that it's never a color thing, because, oh baby, sometimes it is a color thing. Okay, you could bet your bottoms on that. Okay. But a lot of times we see girls like her with white skin, green eyes, blue eyes, blonde hair, whatever, going, not whatever, but blue eyes, blonde hair. Excuse me for saying that. Going missing or being trafficked or disappearing or a homicide case or even a suicide case or whatever case that they present out. The family's always on here too. They don't get the justice they need. So what do? They go to social media, Facebook, Twitter family, the Twitter. TikTok is a big one now too. At first it was Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Now TikTok is booming because they are having to decide, I go to the police, I'm not getting the help that I need. So I might as well go on the internet. Boom. So we can't say her color, her eyes, her pretty skin, and her hair gets all the attention. That's not true. I'm sorry.
And didn't have much faith in law enforcement.
Have the police been helpful to you, Kara, to understand some of the things they can and can't say?
Honestly, no. Honestly, no. They haven't said anything. I learn more on the news and on TV than they have said to me.
She said in the first 3 weeks that this all was unfolding, she didn't spend a lot of time communicating with the other families, that she was really trying to grieve and process all of this with her own family. But now we really know that even though there didn't seem like there was a lot happening, there really was a lot happening behind the scenes. And because the crime scene was a very popular location for many students, tons of people partied there. There was a bunch of DNA in that house. Dozens of people had been through that house, especially in the weeks and days leading up to the attack. And so investigators had to comb through dozens, if not hundreds of different DNA profiles in an attempt to find the one that shouldn't have been inside the house.
When you think about it, you think, well, wow, we've got this evidence-rich environment. We're going to be able to get this thing shut down really quick, come to a conclusion. And it's amazing. Many times, the more data you have, the more complex the case becomes. Most people in their day-to-day lives don't think about just touching surfaces and going through the motions and that sort of thing. But every time you touch something, you leave a trace behind. And in this particular case, if you have people coming and going, they're leaving these kind of slough skin cells everywhere. That's where we get touch DNA.
During this whole time, authorities did over 250 interviews, and they're also combing through thousands and thousands of tips that have come in. Over 19,000 tips actually came in, which is insane. And at this time, they're also keeping the house secured from the public while releasing the information that they could without jeopardizing the integrity of the investigation. So by this point, it was believed that Kaylee may have had some type of stalker, although the details around this were very murky. We didn't know how long it had been going on or even how serious of a situation it was, but her parents have since stated that Kaylee would call them and tell them that she thought that someone had been following her, walking too close to her at the grocery store, but it was never something that was actually reported. But her parents were aware of this. And at this time, it felt like maybe this is a big piece of information that could possibly point them in the right direction to who actually committed this murder. Around this time, it also became public that this knife was a military style knife, a serious knife. And so people started to wonder if maybe this attacker could have been someone who was in the military. But only having bits and pieces of information definitely led people down all types of rabbit holes. Some people really focused on the idea that Kaylee could have this stalker, that it was someone who, was going after Kaylee specifically, and the others were kind of just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Other people thought that maybe this was someone close to them because there was no signs of forced entry. Maybe it was someone who was in the house or regularly came to the house. There were so many what ifs and not enough information to really back up any of these theories. And it wasn't until December 7th, when information regarding the white Hyundai Elantra was released, that people started to feel a little more hopeful about the investigation. In a press release from the Moscow Police Department, detectives announced that they were interested in speaking with the occupant of a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra with an unknown license plate. They said that this person driving the vehicle, they believed, had at least information about what happened, but they did not say whether or not they thought this person was a suspect.
Update. Moscow detectives, they're interested in speaking with the occupants of a white 2011, 2012, or 2013 model year Hyundai Elantra, unknown license plate. Police saying that this vehicle was believed to be in the immediate area of the house where the murders happened on November 13th, those early morning hours. Immediate area, we don't exactly know what that means, if that means on the block or right in front of the house itself. News Nation reporting investigators believe that the occupants of this vehicle might have critical information about this case. The owner of this vehicle might not be the murderer, of course, the police are looking for, but might have critical information about this case.
But at this point, we now know that police actually did have more information about this vehicle than they were letting on. In fact, they had a suspect in mind at this point, but they made the decision to keep that information private. However,
so I hear you. I was reading it. I was reading what you were saying. Okay. Did you see the background on the one who done this? I'm reading it and I can't see how he got. That's my thing. How the hell did he get in the house? It would be easy for him to do it if he talked to just one of them or got a key, or he would have easily made a copy, right? But I don't think that happened. Right. That's my thing too. Cause two of them lived. The two girls lived. One saw him with a mask. He walked right by her like nothing, allegedly. And that's what people are saying. Like, how could you not hear the scream, the commotion, the crying, all that stuff that they must have been doing? How did y'all live? You saw him and he walked by you like nothing and you lived? Why didn't you call the cops? So I'm saying something's not right. And that's just my opinion, y'all. Something is not right. But I'm gonna keep listening to her. I'm gonna see what else she gotta say. Let's see what else she gotta say, Julie.
They did share what they could about the car, and it was enough to give the public hope that justice might be coming. And the same day that the information about the vehicle was released, the police were also seen at the King Road residence as they began packing up the victims' belongings to finally return them to their families. And I can only imagine how emotional, how bittersweet it was for those families to get those items back. Then on December 12th, another update from the police went live. In this announcement, Department Captain Roger Lanier provided more information about why they were looking into this Hyundai Elantra.
There's been a lot of questions about the white car that we've been interested in. We're looking for that car because we believe through our investigation that that car was in the area during the time of the murders. And we also believe that the occupant or occupants may have seen something. They may not know they have seen something. So we specifically want to talk to them, and we want to know who they are and what they might know or might be able to contribute to the investigation.
He also explained how they were still receiving thousands of tips and trying to sort them based on their relevance to the case.
Over the weekend, investigators have sorted through and prioritized numerous tips. Some are tips that came in earlier and we've been working on. Other tips are new and are relevant. It's overwhelming sometimes with the amount of information that comes in on these tip lines. So our analysts have spent hours sorting through and trying to come up with the most relevant tips first for the investigators to follow up on.
And then he also said that despite what many people believe, that police do have more information that they're just not sharing with the public to protect the integrity of the case.
Finally, I just want to add that we do have a lot of information, and we are specifically keeping that information safe. We're not releasing specific details because we do not want to compromise this investigation. It's what we must do. We owe that to the families, and we owe that to the victims. We want more than just an arrest. We want a conviction. We owe that justice to Xana, Kaylee, Madison, and Ethan.
And I'm sure this was a really difficult time for investigators. I mean, they're getting hounded for supposedly not having any answers on this case, for not having any information, for not providing any solid answers to these questions that were being asked. And for 2.5 weeks following this update, people continuously questioned if the police were even capable of solving this case. But meanwhile, they are protecting extremely valuable information so that the suspect would not be tipped off. And as December went on, there were many sightings of white Hyundai Elantras that people thought could be connected to the case, but police knew that it wasn't because they actually knew who exactly this car belonged to and where it was. Also, around this time, the Latah County coroner came under a lot of fire because they had shared some very graphic details about the conditions of their bodies to Kaylee's younger sister. And it was unbelievable. The coroner actually started sharing their own theories about what happened, which is totally weird and irresponsible if you ask me. But luckily, there were a lot of positive things happening behind the scenes. The case was really moving forward. Finally, on December 30th, 2022, some big news came out. There was an arrest made. 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger was arrested as the suspected killer in the University of Idaho quadruple homicide of Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie. This obviously was huge news and such
But you know
relief.
something too?
I finally felt comfortable even talking about the case on
Facts 100 with 100 with that one, Julie. And you know something too? He drove around that house 12 to 20 times. So he's been peeping out that house. You know, this is they gonna hit him with first degree because this was planned. They said that he drove around that place like 12 to 20 times, honey. He was peeping out that house. But why them is my question. Why them? I know these are college kids. They not on the college premises. They on another, premises off college dorm. Remind me of Jelani Day every time I say that. Off another college dorm, but why them? Why them? I know it could happen to just anybody, but I don't know. I think there's more to this. I'm just saying, but we'll see when it come out, when they tell him he going to the electric chair. See if he gonna talk then.
Social media at that point, because it felt like, they really felt confident about Brian. Although I will say it's still alleged. He is still the suspect, innocent until proven guilty. So Brian was arrested at his family home all the way in Pennsylvania, Albrightsville, Pennsylvania to be specific. And he was arrested at 3 a.m. on 4 charges of first-degree murder and 1 charge of felony burglary.
Last night, in conjunction with the Pennsylvania State Police, Federal Bureau of Investigation, detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohlberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murder of Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee.
A criminal complaint was filed yesterday here in Latah County, charging the defendant, Mr. Kohlberger, with 4 counts of first-degree murder, in addition to felony burglary, which involves entering the residence with the intent to commit the crime of murder.
These murders have shaken our community, and no arrest will ever bring back these young students. However, we do believe justice will be found through the criminal process.
So a special emergency response team, or otherwise known as CERT, used a tactic called dynamic entry to make this arrest. And this is only used in high risk situations. And over 50 law enforcement personnel were used in this arrest to make sure that they got Brian without incident. Upon his arrest, Brian Kohlberger was brought into the Monroe County Correctional Facility, where he remained in custody and on suicide watch until his extradition.
Tactical assets were then staged in the county, in Monroe County, into the evening of Thursday, December 29th, last Thursday. And in the early hours of Friday, December 30th, those warrants were executed at the location. Mr. Kohlberger was taken into custody without incident. The scene was turned over to the FBI Evidence Response Team for processing. Mr. Kohlberger was then turned over to the Monroe County Prison, where he has remained in their custody since.
And the same day of his arrest, December 30th, investigators were also seen exiting his apartment in Pullman, Washington, with several boxes of what appeared to be evidence collected during the execution of a search warrant. And up until recently, the items that they collected were not made public. And I will talk more about what exactly they found towards the end, because that information did just recently come out. And like I said, I felt so much relief when this happened. I know so many people did. All across the nation, people have been following this case, just fearing that maybe there would never be answers, maybe there would never be justice. But I truly can't imagine what this day was like for their families. It must have been so overwhelming, and obviously it's a huge win for them, but it's got to come with so many mixed emotions. And even though everyone can kind of take a sigh of relief after this arrest, this is only the beginning. I think Kaylee's dad put it really well when he described what it was like to find out about all of this.
It was nearly 7 weeks of absolutely no clear guidance that we were on the right track. We had evidence. We knew there was evidence, but all that can mean nothing until you have a face and a personality to put it towards. When we found that out, luckily it was in the middle of the night, 10:30. We were able to run around the house, wake everyone up, and say, "Hey, you know what? We got this guy. We got somebody." But you tell yourself to be careful, because you never know for sure. It's a defendant, and it's not done. There's still a lot more work to do. It was worth the wait, and we're on the right track, and there's still a long ways to go, but it feels good. It feels good to be where we are right now.
Xana's mom told NBC.
Therapy for me came at a time that was really pivotal.
Yeah, that's the
Becoming a new
right
father,
topic right
I
now for
needed
this for
more
therapy.
support.
See that despite the nightmare that they had been going through, that this was a huge weight lifted off their shoulders.
Kara Northington, the mother of victim Xana Kernodle, telling NBC News, "It's been a nightmare. This whole thing has been a nightmare, literally. But I feel like a huge weight has lifted off my shoulders."
So as far as we know, Brian's arrest was seamless, but there were still several steps that needed to be taken before investigators could release any more information to the public. According to the Idaho Supreme Court, they now had to get Brian actually back to Latah County before the probable cause affidavit could even be released. So they scheduled an extradition hearing on January 3rd, during which Brian would decide whether or not to waive extradition. And that day, as Brian came into the courthouse, large groups of reporters gathered to witness the suspect in person for the very first time.
The suspected University of Idaho murderer will appear in front of a judge and the world today in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. 28-year-old suspect Brian Christopher Kohberger will appear this afternoon at an extradition hearing. As Long Crime Network reported, Kohberger was arrested in the early morning hours of Friday at his parents' home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania.
During this hearing, Brian did agree to waive extradition, and the following day on January 4th, he was voluntarily flown back to Idaho to face his charges. So before we even get into the charges and the arrest affidavit, let's talk about what we know about Brian. I want to talk about who Brian is and how his past makes his connection to these murders even more disturbing.
For 47 days, police were tight-lipped about what happened inside this house, giving basically no information about a suspect or even a person of interest. But what we didn't know was that they had someone in their sights nearly the entire time. Brian Kohberger, a criminology student in neighboring Pullman, Washington. And as we dig into what we know about him, some of the pieces to this puzzle start to come together even more.
So it turns out Brian Christopher Kohberger is a 28-year-old PhD student studying criminology at Washington State University, located in Pullman, Washington, which in my opinion was one of the most shocking details about all of this. Brian was born and raised in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania, where his father worked in maintenance and his mother worked in the local school system. He has two older sisters. One is a therapist and one is a school counselor. I guess in middle school, he was known as somewhat of a misfit, and some recent reports have come out, which is not surprising, that say that Brian was relentless in his pursuit of girls that he had crushes on. It's been said that from a young age, his behavior towards women has always been slightly off, but as far as we know, was never violent. Brian attended Pleasant Valley High School, and he was known there as being a pretty quiet kid while he endured years of bullying. One of his ex-friends from back then says that he was relatively normal until he started using heroin, at which point he became extremely secluded and self-destructive. She also says that at that point, he went from being bullied to being the bully. The New York Times recently accessed some information from an old forum where Brian made posts as a teenager and expressed a lot of feelings of isolation. In total, he made 118 posts under the username XR, spelled EX.
Wait a minute. Oh my God, Julie, that's why you said that. Girl. I was just waiting to know what the hell he studied. Ooh, wee. Interesting. I'm reading what that say up there. Gun for video game. True psychopath. A true freaking psychopath. Unbelievable. Oh my God. Now I see why people was all up in this case. Child, this motherfucker is.
XARR. In one of these posts, he wrote, "I feel like an organic sack of meat with no self-worth." He also said, "As I hug my family, I look into their faces. I see nothing. It is like I am looking at a video game." Brian also expressed an inability to feel empathy towards others and even shared that he doesn't feel remorse when being mean to his family. As he grew older, he can.
Oh shit. He was a straight up psychopath, yo. I'm surprised his family is alive. They would have been next, probably, allegedly. They probably would have been next. Yeah, I just can't. Unbelievable. And his sisters are therapists, and this one is that, and very, very good job titles. It is. He's. Did he feel like He was married. He wanted to be married. He was born into the wrong family or something. The fuck?
Continued to make posts like this, never really wavering from these dark feelings. In 2011, he shared more about his depression, stating specifically that he has constant thoughts of suicide, crazy thoughts, delusions of grandeur, anxiety, poor self-image, poor social skills, and no emotion. Brian also shared that he suffers from visual snow syndrome, which is where people see
Good night,
static in their
mamita.
vision. So after he graduated high school, Brian stayed in his hometown and
Good night,
became the
Kathy
security
B.
guard for the local high school that he went to. He did eventually get clean from
Aw,
heroin and
so
attended
sweet.
Northampton Community College before moving on to DeSales University, where he got
He
his
lives
bachelor's
8
in psychology in
miles from the
2020 and his
victim?
master's in criminal justice in 2022. And during his time at DeSales University, Brian really developed an interest
We got a
in
new case
criminal
for Miss
psychology. And
Julie.
he actually posted this survey, which has gone all over the internet at this
Julie's
point.
gonna be all in
Sources
this
tell
case
ABC
all
News
night.
investigators are looking at this Reddit post, actively recruiting criminals as part of a school study to understand the psychology of those who commit crimes. It was written by a
Let me
user
see
named
his
Brian
trial.
Koberger and linked to a survey of detailed questions.
And he basically asked ex-cons about the crimes that they committed, how they felt during each point while committing a crime, how they prepared for these crimes, and more. He specifically said things like, before making your move, how did you approach the victim or target? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your home? After arriving, what steps did you take to locate your victims? This survey is just one of the many things that raise suspicions for investigators and have left so many people wondering if he was looking for personal intel on, how to commit crimes on his own. Also, while earning his master's degree at DeSales, Brian had the opportunity to study under Dr. Catherine Ramsland, who is a renowned forensic psychologist and an expert on serial killers. She's best known for her work with the BTK killer, Dennis Rader. Although she has not made a public statement about her experience with Brian yet, probably because she's going to be brought in and will speak in court. But many people have speculated that maybe Brian was trying to seek out someone with intimate knowledge of how serial killers operate in hopes to learn more for his own benefit. It has even been speculated that Brian maybe tried to reach out to the BTK killer himself, and Dennis's daughter said she wouldn't be surprised if Brian had tried.
Do you think he may have had any sort of communication with your father?
Knowing how personally connected Ramsland is to my father, I would not be surprised if Koberger had at least tried to write my father.
So after getting his master's, Brian went on to Washington State University, where he was studying to get his PhD in criminology and also worked as a teaching assistant. Some people who have taken classes with Brian said that he was always quick to offer up his opinion on things, and he seemed to try to impress everyone with his intelligence all the time, seemed to be very full of himself. One of his classmates said that he had an arrogance about him that was extremely off-putting, and one time he even stated that he could go to any bar and get any lady that he wants. And this type of language is honestly not surprising from someone like Brian. It's totally disgusting, but it makes a lot of sense. And what's also really creepy is we have recently learned about some interactions that he has had with people since he allegedly committed these murders that are very off-putting. For example, he was talking to a neighbor about the case, and he said that he doesn't think the police have any leads. And not only that, Brian also told this neighbor that he felt like this was a crime of passion, which is just so creepy. Also, many of his students have said that he was acting very different in the days after the murders were committed, specifically that he was grading all their papers super easily. Like, he was always kind of tough on everyone, but after this happened, it seemed like he was barely paying attention and giving out A's left and right. I think more than anything, people keep coming back to the idea that Brian seemed to be someone who thought that he was extremely intelligent and could pull off a murder without ever being caught. Like he was some type of mastermind who could outsmart the police, when in reality, there were several mistakes that he made in the act of committing these crimes. And obviously, he is yet to be found guilty of any of the 5 charges that he is facing, but some of the evidence I'm about to present to you is extremely convincing. So January 5th, 2023, very recently, Brian made his first court appearance in Latah County. And while he was there, the criminal complaint outlining his charges was read to him.
Count 1 of the criminal complaint charges you with the felony offense of burglary. It alleges that the defendant, Brian C. Koberger, on or about November 13th of 2022 in Latah County, state of Idaho, did unlawfully enter a residence located at 1122 King Road, Moscow, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. Count 2 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Brian C. Koberger, on or about November 13th, 2022, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin,
Nice, so that.
in violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4003.
I just don't
The maximum penalty for this offense, if you were to plead guilty or be found guilty, is death or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
And this same day, the probable cause affidavit was released, which provided an in-depth analysis of the evidence that linked Brian Koberger to the quadruple homicide and led to his arrest in Pennsylvania. This 19-page document details how investigators went from no leads to making it.
Okay, let me see what you're saying. Let me see. You know, when he went to court, that his attorney said that he stands silent and the judge put down a not guilty plea? Get the fuck out of here. So wait a minute. He went to court and his attorney said no, I guess it's whatever, yeah. And the judge put down a not guilty plea? What the hell is going on? You know what? I seen another YouTuber today and the title was, they was in the courtroom, right? And her title was Something's Fishy. I started to do hers too, but it's late, so. But I think we're going to have to get into this case, baby. People were telling me to get into this when it first happened a year ago. A year ago, Julie. When it first was going viral. But like I said, I do cases that nobody is talking about because they need the attention. This case had attention, so I wasn't too focused on, you know what I'm saying? Like they had attention, people knowing about it. So I was like, all right, that's good, you know. But now it's not going viral. I don't care about that. I just want to get into the case, you know. Maybe other people don't know about it. Like you said you didn't know about it. So I was like, oh shit. You know, so that makes two of us. I heard about it, but I know nothing about this.
And arrest several states away. And it has since been read by millions of people around the world, and it provides the answers to so many of the questions we have been wondering since the beginning.
A probable cause affidavit was released Thursday morning, shortly before Koberger's court appearance. It reveals Koberger was tied to the crime through DNA, his cell phone records, and a video of a white Hyundai Elantra.
And keep in mind, while I am explaining some of the information that we learned through the affidavit, I will be repeating some of the timeline, but we will be kind of going back and filling in some of those gaps. So one of the many findings that was released in the probable cause affidavit stated that a vehicle was seen passing the victim's house several times on the night of the attack. I know I shared this information earlier, but I wanted to touch on it once again because it's clearly a very important part. And what makes it so important is that it provided investigators with a lead that they could use to help identify a possible suspect. And with this information, Moscow police reached out to law enforcement in the surrounding community and asked that they keep an eye out for vehicles matching the description, which leads me to the next thing revealed in the affidavit. So a campus officer at Washington State University was responsible for linking the Elantra to Brian Koberger. The affidavit shares that on November 29th, 4 days after the Moscow police asked local law enforcement to be on the lookout for this vehicle, a campus officer inquired about the Elantra on WSU's campus. At approximately 11:58, this officer located a 2015 white Elantra in a parking spot at a student apartment complex, and after running the plates, roommates, he'd learned that the vehicle belonged to someone named Brian Koberger. And this is significant to police because after looking up photos of Brian, it became apparent that he matched the description of the masked man seen inside the house on the night of the murders, which takes me to the next major piece of information that was released. One of the most shocking details that has come out in the affidavit is that one of the surviving roommates, DM, was not only awake during the attack, but actually saw the killer himself. It was originally stated that all 4 roommates plus the 2 surviving roommates were asleep during the attack, but we learned that this is not the case. The affidavit shares that around 4 a.m. on November 13th, DM woke up hearing what she believed to be Kaylee playing with her dog. And then not long after waking up, the roommate shared that she heard something along the lines of, "There's someone here." It says after hearing this, DM got out of bed for the first time to peek outside her door, but went back to her room when she didn't see anything. And it also shared that Xana was awake during this time too. We find out that she actually received a DoorDash order at 4 a.m. and her cell phone records showed that she was on TikTok at approximately 4:12 a.m. So there's still a question mark here about whether this roommate DM actually heard something playing on Xana's phone or if she actually heard someone inside the home. But one takeaway we can get from this is that there was more than one person awake at the time. DM then says that she heard crying coming from Xana's room and then a male voice say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." So at this point, she looks outside of her door a second time and sees nothing. And surprisingly, a security camera less than 50 feet away from the west wall of Xana's room corroborated these sounds. The affidavit says that around 4:17 a.m., a surveillance camera near the residence picked up distorted audio of what sounded like a whimper and then a loud thud. And Kaylee's dog can also be heard barking. And then the crying continued, and DM looks out her door one more time, and this time she sees the killer. She describes seeing a figure clad in black clothing and a mask, and he walked by as she stood frozen in shock.
One of the surviving roommates told officers she woke up around 4 a.m. and heard what she thought was crying from Kernodle's room. At about 4:17 a.m., a security camera about 50 feet from the wall of Kernodle's bedroom picked up distorted audio of what sounded like a whimper, followed by a loud thud and a dog barking. The roommate says she opened her door and saw a man in black clothing and a mask. Court documents say the man walked by her and out a back sliding glass door. She then locked herself in her room.
She described this figure as a male, 5'10" or taller, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. And after seeing him, she got scared and she locked herself in her room. And having an eyewitness description was crucial so that investigators had something to compare photos against. So when that WSU officer found the Elantra registered to Brian and they had the eyewitness description, it was a strong lead to work off of. So a lot has been said about the roommate seeing the suspect, but then the 911 call wasn't played.
I was reading the comments, right? I'm sorry you couldn't see. Well, you could hear what she was saying, but you couldn't see her face, but that's okay. But if y'all was wondering what I was doing, I was reading the comments because Ethan's friend is in her comment. I'm going to read what he's saying. Let me see what you said, Julie. Hold on. I've been looking at this case while listening. This dude is a slick with all his studies and jobs. Yeah. With him saying all that he could use the mental disabled card in court, you keep from death. Exactly. Right. I heard about that. The death penalty. Right. So as we listening, it looked like y'all probably said, what's wrong with Brooklyn? Did she doze out on us? No, I was reading the comments because Ethan's best friend or some guy is in her comments. I am exhausted, but I'm still awake, y'all. I was reading this. So let me tell y'all what he said. See, I like reading the comments too from other people, right? Right here. He says his name is Mecca. He says, I am a friend of Ethan, and when I say this has been the hardest year, I meant it. I met him a couple years ago in our local Tilla festival and quickly learned that we've had connections our whole lives. As I grew with his cousin, Ethan was one of the most amazing people. He always knew how to make people happy and smile on their worst days. Ethan was a light that the world desperately needed, as for all four of them were. We miss you every day. Thank you for covering this. I'm going to give that a like. And then there's 2 comments saying, I'm sorry for your loss and the hugs and prayers. Then somebody else said, I'm so sorry. I recently lost someone from my school to suicide, which was super hard. Grief is a process in the love. Yes, grief is a process. And my condolences to you too, Neisha Wimbert, and my condolences to you, Mecca, for losing Ethan and the Ohio teenagers. Wow, so sorry. It's tragic. But yeah, wow.
Place until 8 hours later. There's been a lot of confusion and questions around this. In the beginning,
So,
people
yeah, that's
figured,
what I was
they're
reading, yeah.
college students. Maybe they slept in and didn't know that this had taken place. And that's why the 911 call was made so much later. But now that it's come out that DM actually saw the suspect in the house, went back in her room and locked the door, there's been a lot of questions about why she didn't call right away. And I know that my audience, for the most part, is very kind and respectful to all victims. And I think at this point, while we don't know everything, it's important that we remember that these surviving roommates are victims in their own way. And there are several reasonable explanations for why it may have taken so long to call 911. Let's not forget that she was in shock. Her body had a physiological response to what she had just seen and put her in like a frozen state. I think instead of blaming this young girl or questioning her story at this point, people should, first of all, be thankful that she survived. And second of all, be thankful that she saw this killer and was able to get that information back to the police. And that was very crucial in them making this arrest. Even Kaylee's father has expressed how sorry he feels for her with all this public scrutiny for what she experienced that night and does not put any blame on her for not calling the police sooner.
This is a girl that's wasn't prepared to see what she's seen. My heart goes out to her.
And I know people have questions about it, and that's just natural, but I think at this point it's not helpful. So going back in time here, before they actually arrested Brian, they had to keep an eye on him while also trying to gather enough evidence to actually tie him to the crime scene. Going back to December 13th, Brian and his father, Michael, began the trek home from Washington back to where he lived and grew up in Pennsylvania. And he was going home from the Christmas break. This was a pre-planned trip, and investigators were able to track his movements with the help of several key pieces of information. First of all, Brian's car got a hit on a license plate reader in Loma, Colorado. Then, and most notably, on December 15th, Brian was pulled over in Hancock, Indiana around 10:40 a.m. on I-70 for following too closely behind a semi-truck.
In this December 15th dash cam video provided to 13 News by the Hancock County Sheriff's Department.
Hello, how you doing? How y'all doing today?
A deputy pulls over Brian Koberger, the man accused of killing 4 Idaho college students. Koberger's father in the passenger seat. The deputy asks for his driver's license.
He was right up on the back end of that van, pulled you over for tailgating.
Koberger's father tells the deputy they're driving from Washington State, where Koberger was a grad student. In a conversation, he mentioned it was the scene of a shooting.
And what did you say about some SWAT team thing? Or there was a mass shooting and everything. Where? Interesting.
Then only a few hours later, he was pulled over again by an Indiana State trooper. I've read some reports that these stops were done deliberately at the request of the FBI to see if Brian had any defensive wounds. So they continue on their way, and by
Dave complaining, saying, "You gonna stay up all night? Because I got an appointment tomorrow. I got 3 appointments, actually. 4, really." Okay, so let me see, Julie. My girl Julie said, "What if he did go to a bar and one of the girls turned him down? That could have set him off and he started talking to her, stalking her. That could be it. That could be it." I can send it to you about the court. Okay. I could look it up too, but okay. Yeah, y'all want me to get into? Well, I'm gonna put a poll up for whoever want me to get into this case. There's some interesting shit. I tell you, boy. I'm definitely gonna put a poll up.
December 16th, they made it back to Albrightsville, which was confirmed after his vehicle was spotted on surveillance in the town. And when he got there, there was a surveillance team tasked with 2 big missions. The first, to keep an eye out on Brian until enough information was available to make an arrest. And in doing so, they made some more valuable discoveries. The arrest warrant states that while in Pennsylvania, Brian was seen cleaning both the exterior and interior of his car. He was wearing surgical gloves when he left his home, and then at 4 a.m., he is seen taking his own trash and putting it in his neighbor's trash can. All of these behaviors seem to align with a guilty person, if you ask me. The second mission for the surveillance team was to get a DNA sample of Brian to compare to the DNA that was found at the crime scene. That's right, there was DNA left at the crime scene. Up until this point, it was unknown if the killer had left their DNA or not, but the affidavit shared a major discovery. The document says that a knife sheath had been located on the right side of Maddie's body, and after careful testing, a single source of male DNA was found on the button snap. This DNA was sent to the Idaho State Lab for testing, but at the time, investigators had nothing to compare it against until now. Pennsylvania authorities were able to take
Welcome to After the Impact Atlanta. It's a whole lot of lies being told. How do you feel about your dad being
After
here?
28 years, why really do I need you in my life?
Mommy said to her that as she
Come
answered
on,
the
man.
phone,
items from the family's trash can on December 27th and immediately submitted it to the Idaho State Lab. And results came back the following day, which stated that the test identified a male as not being excluded as the biological father of the suspect. Specifically, at least 99.9998% of the male population would be excluded from being the suspect's father. So that means it's more than 99% likely that the DNA found on the knife sheath was a match for Brian Kohberger.
Trash ending up being key in the case. Police linking Kohberger to the murders by collecting his father's DNA from trash outside the family home and matching that to DNA they say they discovered on the button snap of a knife sheath that was on the bed next to the body of victim Madison Mogan.
And pretty recently, one of Brian's neighbors from his apartment complex shared that once he had a conversation with Brian where he shared that he had taken a DNA test to learn more about his ancestry. It wasn't specified where exactly his DNA was submitted, but it was probably something like 23andMe or Ancestry, something along those lines. And while this DNA match is definitely one of the most substantial pieces of evidence that placed Brian at the crime scene, it wasn't the only evidence. By the end of December, a search warrant was obtained for Brian's cell phone records, and that showed that since June of 2022, his cell phone pinged off the towers that provide coverage to the area of 1122 King Road 12 times before the victims were killed. And each of these 12 visits, except for one, occurred in the early morning hours or the late evening. And police did not share the dates of all of these visits except for one. It turns out that on August 21st, 2022, Brian was pulled over within minutes of the victim's house. So clearly, this is stalking behavior. And it seemed like he was staking out the area and these victims for a while. And on top of these 12 visits to the neighborhood, additional cell phone records show suspicious activity occurring on Brian's phone on the actual.
That's what you say. He was stalking. He even asked for his trial to be moved to another courthouse out of the college town because they gonna eat his ass up, girl. That's why they gonna eat his behind up.
Morning of the murders. At 2:47 a.m. on November 13th, Brian's cell phone stopped connecting to the tower located near his residence in Pullman, Washington, which is located 10 minutes from the University of Idaho. And this is consistent with someone turning off their phone or like putting it in airplane mode, which prevents the device from providing location data. And it wasn't until 4:48 a.m. that his phone reconnected to a network several miles south of the University of Idaho and was tracked back to his residence in Pullman. Clearly, this is Brian making an attempt to conceal his location during those hours. But even though he attempted to do this, attempted to turn his phone off or in airplane mode or whatever, he still was caught on security footage driving in the direction of the killings. Specifically at 2:53 a.m., a surveillance camera spotted a white sedan traveling toward the highway that connects Pullman to Moscow. Next, as I explained earlier, at 3:29 a.m., a surveillance camera in a neighborhood where the murders took place captured a white Hyundai Elantra making 3 passes by the house and then returning a 4th time. The vehicle attempts to either park or make a 3-point turn. I also mentioned earlier that the same vehicle was seen leaving the area around 4:20 a.m. at a high rate of speed.
Outside the house, police say the suspect's alleged movements played a big role in connecting him to the crime scene. On the day of the murders, a white sedan matching the suspect's vehicle was spotted in the area from 3:29 a.m. to 4:20 a.m. Court documents show the vehicle drove by the house 3 times at about 3:30 a.m. before leaving the road. Then at 4:04, the car returned to the street and parked. The car then leaves the street at a, quote, high rate of speed at about 4:20 a.m.
And the suspicious activity found through Brian's phone records does not stop there. We also found out that he may have returned to the crime scene several hours after the murders took place. Around 9 a.m. on November 13th, Brian's phone connected to several towers that are consistent with him driving in the direction of Moscow. Then his phone connected to a network near the scene of the crime at 9:12 a.m. and stayed in the area until 9:21 a.m. After this 9-minute stay, his phone was traced back to the area of his residence in Pullman. If he is responsible for these murders, and I think you all know where I stand at least, and I know where most of you stand, that is extremely creepy. It's like he was going back to the scene to see if they had called 911 yet, and this is pretty common, actually. There have been many instances over the years of killers coming back to the scene of the crime, and it's just such a slap in the face to these victims who are still lying undiscovered in their beds, dead. It's just horrific. It makes my skin crawl. So the affidavit also reveals some information about Brian leading up to the murders occurring, like the months before. Turns out just a few months back, Brian had applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department. And as part of his application, he was required to write an essay in which he shared that he was interested in helping rural police departments collect and analyze technological data in public safety operations. So ultimately, it was the DNA linking Brian to the knife sheath, the cell phone location data, and his white Hyundai Elantra that led to his arrest on December 30th, 2022. And I know that was a lot of information to go over, but honestly, that's just an abbreviated version. There is so much here. I highly recommend reading the probable cause affidavit for yourself because it does provide a lot of information about how this arrest was made possible. So even though we do have a lot of information at this point, there are still a lot of questions that are unanswered that hopefully we know more about in the future. Some of those being, where is the knife? What is the motive in this case? Why did it take the roommates so long to call 911? These are all things we don't know. I also did want to mention that there was a shoe print in the house from a sneaker from the brand Vans. However, we don't know at this point if it actually belonged to Brian. It really could have been anyone that came through the house at any time leading up to the murders. And I'm sure all of this information has been shocking and overwhelming to the victims' families because they have been kept in the dark just as much as the rest of us.
I wish I would have had it earlier. I wouldn't have been so stressed out. We had like pieces of that story and interwoven. I mean, the mask, we'd heard about somebody seeing a masked person, but there were so many holes in what we knew that we just had to throw our hands up and trust the enforcement.
Kaylee's family has been very, very vocal throughout this entire case, but especially in the last few weeks since his arrest was made. They've made many appearances in the media, and they've shared kind of how they're doing. And both the Gonzalez and the Chapin family have expressed that they are not spending any of their time being angry about what happened. Ethan's mom, Stacy, recently took to Facebook to share how their family is doing. She expressed that Ethan's siblings have both returned to the University of Idaho for the spring semester, and also talked about how their family is choosing to look ahead. They say that they just need to keep moving forward, especially considering that an arrest is not the end of the road, but merely the beginning. Maddie's dad said following the arrest and the release of the affidavit, he broke down in tears and has yet to read the entire document.
If I had one or two words to describe Maddie May, it would be just an angel, and that she just made me proud. I broke down, and I just cried. I could only take so much of that, and I just I cried. I still haven't read the rest of it.
Xana's loved ones are leaning on each other for support during this time and just hoping that more answers continue to come to light. They have also created a scholarship in her honor called the Xana Kernodle Scholarship Endowment, which is a collaboration with the University of Idaho to honor her memory and keep her legacy alive. Her family made a generous donation of $10,000 to kick off the fund in hopes that it would inspire others to do the same. Also, a scholarship fund was made in Ethan's memory called Ethan Chapin Memorial Scholarship Fund. The scholarship is in collaboration with his fraternity, Sigma Chi, and the funds collected will be annually given to one undergraduate member of the organization. And Ethan's former employers at the Tulip Farm have really honored his life in their own way. They have created a special bulb mix of yellow and white tulips that they have named Ethan Smile, which I just love that. And they not only have planted their own gardens, but they will be available for purchase, and proceeds will go towards supporting his scholarship fund. So clearly the fight for justice here is not over. It's really just beginning, and there is going to be much more information coming out over the next year, or honestly years to come. Brian received a new public defender when he arrived back in Idaho, and he will be working with her on his defense. I cannot imagine doing that. And even though he has not yet entered his plea, which I'm guessing will be not guilty, he has expressed his eagerness to clear his name to be exonerated of any and all charges that he is facing. And his public defender in Pennsylvania recently shared that Brian seemed confident that he will not face jail time. We will see about that. He has also shared that while the affidavit is strong, there are areas in it that could be easily attacked by a competent defense attorney. So it will be up to the prosecution to present a really solid case, and I hope they will be able to do so. I mean, there's a lot here. Brian Kohberger made a second appearance in court on January 12th, 2023 for a status hearing, during which we learned that a preliminary hearing will take place. Brian's counsel requested that the hearing be scheduled for the 3rd or 4th week of June, citing that they would like the added time to obtain discovery in their case. In the state of Idaho, a judge must schedule a preliminary hearing no later than 14 days after the defendant makes their first court appearance, unless the right to a speedy preliminary hearing is waived. And in this case, Brian chose to waive this right and accepted that this hearing would take place at a later date.
If you waive your right to a speedy preliminary hearing, it does not mean that you're giving up your right to have a preliminary hearing. It simply means that you would not be able to come back and challenge that the state did not present probable cause within 14 days. Do you understand?
Yes.
And this request was agreed upon and led by prosecutor Bill Thompson, and the preliminary hearing was then scheduled for June 26, 2023 at 9 a.m., at which point he will have to make his official plea of guilty or not guilty. So it's definitely going to be hard waiting until then. If he pleads not guilty and it is determined that there is enough evidence in place to go ahead and move forward with a trial, that will begin hopefully shortly after. And because he killed 4 people, Brian could potentially face the death penalty.
I know.
So in just the last couple of days
He's a
before
shit
I
genius,
sat down to
honestly
record
saying.
this, there have been a few new bits of information that have come out. For example, it's now being reported that he allegedly sent repeated DMs to one of the victims. And keep in mind, this is not confirmed, but an unnamed investigator told a reporter at People magazine that Brian said things like, "Hey, how are you doing?" and sent similar messages on several occasions. It's also being reported that he visited Mad Greek, the restaurant where Maddie and Xana worked, not long before the murders. An employee who worked there says that she remembers Brian going there on 2 occasions and ordering vegan pizza. However, the restaurant has actually made their own statement about this on their Facebook page, saying that these accusations were not true.
There are some new details coming out tonight about alleged reports surrounding the Idaho murder suspect. Early this week, People magazine reported that Kohberger ate at a restaurant where 2 of the victims worked as waitresses. News Nation spoke with Steve Helling, a senior crime writer for People, yesterday. This is what he had to say.
You know, whether or not his paths crossed with the girls there and whether or not that's where it started, that's something that the cops would know for sure. But we know for sure that he ate there at least twice.
But now the Mad Greek restaurant is rejecting reports that alleged killer Brian Kohberger dined there shortly before the murders. In a Facebook post, the restaurant saying, quote, "This will be my only response to the story from People. It is not true."
So no one really knows what's going on with that situation. I imagine the police know more about that. It's been interesting to see how the media is like really hung on to this idea that he had gone to the restaurant when the restaurant is saying that he didn't. So I don't know, big question mark there. But if these things end up being true and he really did message one or more of the victims and maybe visited them at Mad Greek, that would help the prosecution show premeditation for sure. But like I said, we're not sure if that's even true at this point. And then just recently, a 49-page document was unsealed by a Washington state judge that shares what was seized at Brian's residence during the execution of a search warrant on December 30th, 2022. At first, this information was going to be kept private, but luckily the release of the probable cause affidavit gave investigators confidence that sharing this search warrant information wouldn't jeopardize the integrity of the case.
We're finally getting more clues into what investigators were after when they searched Brian Kohberger's home. He is the 28-year-old PhD student who's accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students in their off-campus home. The search warrant was originally sealed, but a Washington state judge ordered its release just hours ago. Remember, Kohberger lived in Washington state.
And this is what we learned from it being unsealed. On December 30th, 2022, a team of officers entered Brian Kohberger's residence located at 1630 NE Valley Road, apartment G201 in Pullman, Washington. And inside the apartment, investigators collected the following items: 1 nitrate type black glove, 1 Walmart receipt with 1 Dickies tag, 2 Marshall's receipts, dust container from a Bissell Power Force vacuum, 12 possible hair strands, 1 Fire TV stick with a cord and plug, 1 possible animal hair, which some have speculated that this might be from the dog that was at the house, 1 computer tower, 1 collection of a dark red spot, 2 cuttings from an uncased pillow with a reddish brown stain, one of which has already been tested, and 2 top and bottom of a mattress cover packaged separately, both labeled C, each with multiple stains, and one of those has been tested. And this information obviously tells investigators a lot, even if some of it is still being kept from the public. Obviously, we now know what was actually found, but we don't know if any of it actually links Brian to the murders. Also, his office at Washington State University was searched, but again, this document doesn't share what, if anything, was actually seized as a result. But along with this new information that has come out from the warrant being unsealed, there has also been a gag order put in place. This is going to prevent any attorney representing a witness, victim, or victim's family from making comments about the case. But this gag order doesn't stop their families from speaking out, although...
But you know what, Julie? Even if because she was like, premeditated because, you know, he went to the pizza shop or whatever, and they could say, oh, he didn't go. It don't matter. He went around that damn apartment between 12 and 20 times. They got him. They seen it. They already said it. So he was already lurking. He was already lurking at that house, their house. Ugly piece of shop. He was lurking their house. They better stop playing. Ugh. Shit. What's wrong with them?
Many of the families have been putting out statements through their attorneys.
This caught a lot of us by surprise who have been covering this case very, very closely, because there was already a strict gag order in place for the last several weeks or so that pretty much prevented both sides, the prosecution, the defense attorneys, and any law enforcement involved in the case from talking at all about the case. So we weren't getting very much information officially. Well, now the judge has signed off on a new gag order that takes that even farther, now including pretty much everyone involved, including attorneys representing the victims' families in the case.
So I don't know at this point if they're going to continue to speak out or if they'll kind of pull back now that this gag order is in place. But overall, knowing how hard investigators have worked on this case and how much has been done behind the scenes is really hopeful. And I can only imagine they will continue to put forth the same effort until Bryan Kohberger is behind bars. Although innocent until proven guilty, I've got to say that. But I don't know. You guys know how I feel. Getting a guilty conviction could be a long time from now, months and months, if not a year or more. But I have a gut feeling that there will be justice for Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee. Sadly, nothing will ever bring these incredible young lives back. But I believe that as long as we continue to push for the truth, a time will come when a sense of justice will be felt. Oh boy, you can tell how long I have been recording by the change in lighting. It has definitely gotten dark outside, and I've got to wrap.
Yes, girl, you doing your thing, boo-boo. Okay, now. She's doing her thing. Child, we was on here since 7 o'clock. It is 11 o'clock. Ooh, 7-Eleven, stop playing with me. 7-Eleven, stop playing with me. 7-Eleven, stop playing with me. Those is long. Yeah, we've been on here since 7. I usually do 8, but all right, y'all. I don't know who's in the back. Who's in the back? Who's in the back? You know, I think they gonna his ass is guilty. They no cap. Straight, go to jail, go past go. You in there, go to the lecture chair already, is waiting for you. Got your name on it. Put a little hat. Don't even put the water on it. Just fry his ass. You know, just fry him. Just like the egg. Don't even put the sponge on it and do all that shit. Just fry him. Like they did in Green, what's that show? Green Mile. Which I know about that. I think that's, let me see. Is that the right name? Green Mile. Child, with the Green Mile. With the Green Mile. All right, y'all. For those that's gonna come into this video later on tonight. Yeah, I usually come late nights probably or early in the morning. It's very, very long. So I just want to let y'all know, just prepared, get your little snack or something or whatever, because I didn't expect for it to be this long. But I want to tell you what I did. The first part is the news breaking down a lot of stuff. All right. Y'all probably seen it, but it's not just any news. Okay. It's the news. Okay. And they break it down a lot of shit. And actually, we still had a lot more to go on that. I had to cut that because we would have been there for another 4 hours. And then we go into the parents, one of the girls, 2 parents, talking about her and her best friend. I didn't do the whole segment of that. Well, I did most of it actually, stepping at the end a little bit. Just a little part about their friendship and how they miss their children. And then we went into the whole video of this, because this is what I really wanted to show you. This part was the reaction video. But I wanted to start off with going back on how it all begun. Give a little breakdown of it because I'm new for this case too. And I'll tell you why I didn't cover this case before, even though it was viral. You will find that out in the video. why I didn't cover this case. Because it was so vital. It was already being covered. It was being loved. It was being nurtured. I was covering cases that wasn't being loved. I was covering cases that was being abandoned. Okay? But the case is still, victims are still victims, and I'm still going to cover it regardless. But I don't have to rush in coverage just because it's going viral. I don't do that stuff. You feel what I'm saying? But those that don't, no shade. That's just, I just don't. I'm not hating, you know? I just don't. Every case needs love. Every case needs love. But when you go on viral and stuff, I don't need to jump on it. Let me jump on the ones that y'all know what's going on, that they being thrown under the rug. They're not even being talked about on the news. Cops don't give a fuck about them. Those are cases that I gotta bring to y'all. But my subs kept giving me this case, so I did it. Okay? So this was a reaction video of the breakdown. I'm going to put a poll up with some cases. I ain't doing it tonight because I'm tired. I got 4 appointments between me and hubby tomorrow. But I will let y'all know when I'm going to put the poll. I ain't putting the poll up tonight. It's already 10:46. I'm going to eat my Chinese food that my man bought me. My shrimp and broccoli with white rice. And I'm going to eat a little bit of that and put the rest away with the shrimp roll. And I'm going to take my ass to bed. But I will put the poll up. I will let y'all know when I put the poll up. And y'all vote for what y'all want to see. Y'all want me to continue with this? Or y'all want to do the Rum DMC trial? Or y'all want to do this trial? Y'all better vote, because trials are coming up. Yeah, they went to the bar before they went to the food truck. Yeah. You have to look at the whole thing in the beginning. Like I'm saying, I played the part of the news segment of a lot. And they talked about all that stuff. It's, so just go on back. And if you want to, that's up to you. You could rewind it. But other than that, I'm taking my ass to bed after I eat. I will see y'all tomorrow, hopefully. But don't forget, Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, I will be having a young lady on here who lost her niece and her nephew to gun violence. One was 16 years old. She was pow in the head. And her nephew was 13 years old. He was pow by a police officer. I will be interviewing her here Saturday at 5 o'clock. The thumbnail is up already. Keep your notifications on. Other than that, I got mad love for y'all. Y'all know that. I'm going to be working on my, anyway, I'll talk about that another time. And on my platforms, y'all, okay? I see y'all tomorrow. Oh, yeah, I will be live tomorrow because there's a case that, no, I can't do that case. I'm going to have to do an upload on it. I see y'all tomorrow. Bye. Peace. Good night, Julie.